are live. And watch the loads.
Yes,
Good evening, everyone. If you're now signing on, we're live here with Mr. Peter Wickham. Just give us about a minute or two while we share the link with everyone. I know that this is an anticipated show, and we are gonna carry it shortly, but we just want to be able to share share the show. We still have some people coming on fast, so just give us a few seconds to share, and then we will begin talking politics and social issues with Mr. Peter Wickham. Let me just share to all of the. Yeah, just want to say welcome to everyone again. Just give us a few minutes and we will get the ball rolling as it relates to having a discussion with Mr. Wickham. Everybody share? Again, good evening. If you see any technical difficulties, please, if you hear or see any technical difficulties, let us know. We ask that you share the link with your folks. Like our page is important so that you know when we come to you live every Wednesday and every Saturday here to discuss a number of topics. We like to debrief things, bring it down to a more understandable level so people can understand what is going on in society at the level that they best understand. So, we're about to start. Okay, wait. Post it already?
Yeah, you post it.
Okay. Alright, so I want to say pleasant good evening to Mr. Wickham. We want to thank you for taking the time out to be on the show with us to talk about politics. We know that you work with cadres. We know your work in the election and elections, I should say, because you're all over as it relates to election and not just in Barbados. And we always really appreciate it for people that take the time out to come sit with young people like us, talk on a number of topics, and we like to call it the debrief session, where we debrief things and we bring it down to that ground level. Sometimes we hear words too big and we hear articles that you can't even understand. And we, as the debrief hosts, like to take we have a chat room, so we actually take the conversation we have in the chat room and bring it live for people to just have this interactive discussion with us, and that is why it's called the DeBrief Show. So we want to thank you for taking your time out of your much busy schedule to be here with us. I'm your host, Kimar Safri. To my left is Mr. Damani Small, and over across the floor from me is Jeremy Beckford. Next to him is Kimar Stewart, and Mr. Simon Aline is on his way. And that is the DeBrief team. And we have you here today with us, Peter. So welcome.
Thanks, good to be with you guys. I am eager, anxious to get started.
So you're the cadres man. You're the analytics, data. You hold all the keys to election in somewhat as it relates to winning election, as it relates to your prediction on election. You were instrumental in the last election, and we really open with it for us with the understanding of what is cadres and the role that cadres play in the many elections that we've seen it played across in Barbados, but also across the Caribbean and Royal Reach.
Yeah, I mean, I see myself as a messenger, and again, thanks for the invitation. You know, I love to chat about politics and political happenings and stuff, so I look forward to these kinds of sessions. where we can actually speak in a slightly less formal way.
Right.
And yeah, no, I see myself as a messenger. As people have views and opinions that they're anxious to share, I listen to those views and opinions, and essentially I convey that information to either policymakers, political parties, or practitioners in politics. They can decide what they do with the information. They can ignore it, as has happened in the past. They can take it on board and see how they can change those views. Or they can use it to inform and modify their own positions consistent with those views. So I see myself basically as a very, one could say a sophisticated messenger in that I go around and I listen. I listen systematically. That's probably the big difference between what I do and what happens in a ram shop. You listen systematically and you try to get a scientific reading of what people are thinking and feeling politically. And it goes beyond just whether they're B or D. You know, you often ask other kinds of questions that are a lot about policy. And that's basically what I've done for the last, let's say, 20 or so years. And it's been exciting. This is an exciting time. I mean, you have your ups and downs, you know. You don't always get it right, but ultimately, the important thing is that you do a reasonable job.
What's the success of cadres as it relates to putting out these statistics out there in elections?
You mean like predicting elections?
Predicting elections.
That's a common question you ask. What's your success rate? What's your track record? Cadres has never given an election result within 30 days of an election that has fallen outside the plus or minus 5% margin of error. And that's ultimately what we promise. We tell our clients, if you call an election within, or the election falls within 30 days of a result, ultimately, you know, we're not going to be more than 5%. The challenge is that, that's just not good enough.
Right.
So 2013, for example, the election was, the difference between the win and the loss was 2%, less than 2 percentage points. So what I have found recently is that 5% is simply not enough. And we've had elections in the past where we've been within that 5%, but the call in terms of win or loss was off. And that's a harsh reality that, you know, you have to deal with in this business. But I'm comfortable with the track record. What we have done over the years is that we've tried to become slightly more sophisticated in our methods. And I think the lessons of 2013 and the lessons of the American election were not lost on us as a polling organization. And we've changed a lot of the way that we've done business since 2013. And as I said, since the American election, in which a similar thing happened, to understand the kind of issues that, you know, can cause, well, basically that deal with the central part of our business. And you can talk about it some more if you want.
Right.
I have a question.
Okay, you can raise your voice. So yes, the persons don't get
It's good to meet you, though. I've always admired your tenacity, if I can say. So,
I appreciate it.
you never canvassed me for my vote, but
well, it's a rather large constituency, and couldn't make it to every possible door.
fair enough.
Right? But I always wanted to meet you as well, you know, Mr. Peter Wickham, the great pollster.
You could have asked me for a vote.
You never know what the future holds.
Yeah.
But you made mention that your polls come in less than like a 5% margin. So did you predict a total vote with the Democratic Party last time?
Yeah, but I mean, we publish the data. The client that we worked for in the last election gave permission for us to publish the data after the election, and the nation published all of it. The reality was that if the election had been called in September, October, November, around there, when we first started polling, the Democratic Labour Party could have saved about 6 seats. By February, they were down to 4. Right? And basically, as they moved past February, it was pretty clear to us that they were essentially losing all of them. We published a poll in the newspaper in St. John that showed the Democratic Labour Party neck and neck. In terms of the BLP and the DLP votes almost even. And that was in the public domain.
But did that have anything to do with the strength of the candidate in St. John?
In St. John? At the time, there was no candidate. And at the time, there was no candidate, but the poll was commissioned by someone who didn't identify himself. But there was no candidate in St. John. But we were asking about the strength of the two parties, and we saw that it was a neck-and-neck situation. That, to me, was the clearest indication that the Democratic Labour Party was losing all the seats. Because if you get to a situation where an election hasn't been called, an election is overdue, and your strongest seat is within 0.05 of winning, then clearly, you know, you can't defend. If you can't defend St. John, how can you defend all the others? So St. Philip North, St. Michael Northwest, and St. John were the areas that were hardest. Prime Minister's seat, Fernando Stewart, that was gone already. But those were the three hardest, I would say, to
But
win.
when was that gone? Because I know Kirk Humphrey would have been a new candidate on the block. One that I would have worked with already when he was in the Ministry of Social Care. Why then? I know the fact that it was said that the Prime Minister is not one to talk, is not one to communicate. What would have then, and it was probably unprecedented that Prime Minister would lose the seat in some cases in Barbados, but what would have trickled you knowing so early that the Prime Minister himself would have lost to Kirk Humphrey?
We polled the constituency. We polled the constituency, and the poll has showed that the Prime Minister was being beaten. So, I mean, basically that's where the information came from. It was fairly clear. And I also think that at that time, look, we were in a situation in Barbados where it was painfully obvious to everyone that the condition that the country was in had a lot to do with the lack of leadership. Barbados was drifting along like a boat. And, you know, and it was only logical that the person who was responsible for captaining this ship was the individual that would suffer most as a result. So I would have been very surprised if he didn't lose the seat. Because my feeling was that, you know, a lot of the anger was on him personally.
And do you think that by Prime Minister prolonging the election, when past the date, had contributed significantly to them not actually winning any seat?
Yeah. Because as I said to you, if he had called it in September, October, November, you get him back in 6 seats, he probably could have saved his. Once we went into 2018 and February passed, and I think that was a critical time for people, when they saw February pass, I then heard people, I just saw a significant dip in terms of the numbers that we were seeing in the polls. All the polls we did after February were essentially showing
so people were
a
frustrated.
clear decline.
And that was frustrated.
Right.
Although the result obviously was against the Democratic Party, would you say that was a strategic move by the Prime Minister at the time and his party to prolong the election?
Why were they prolonging it?
That's a question that I've always wondered about, because I kept asking, is this a strategy, and what is the strategy? The Dems kept saying to me, don't worry about no strategy, he has the right to do that. And my point was always that having a right to do something isn't a strategy, because you want to win, right? Ministers who would speak to me privately said, yeah man, we were telling the man was saying that he got the right to do it, so what are you going to do? But my feeling is that, you know, you were 30 people, 29 people, you pulling down everybody. Somebody must have been able to say to him, look buddy, this situation is not good.
I personally think because...
But no, I'll tell you the reason. The reason was revealed on election night when he said that he was Prime Minister for 7 years, 7 months and 7 days. The only way he could have been Prime Minister for 7 years, 7 months and 7 days is if he called the election exactly when he called it. And the fact is that he was playing all of these games. If he had announced it before, on that day, he could have achieved the same result. But he didn't announce it before on that day because he essentially wanted to get past this psychological thing of February. You know, if you want to call the election after February, which is when it is due, it doesn't make sense to announce it before, because then people are going to say, but then if you're going to announce it before, well, you can't call it in time.
Right.
So I feel he got himself into this muddle where if he had called it in February, he couldn't have been Prime Minister for 7 years, 7 months and 7
So
days.
therefore it has nothing to do with trying to earn extra salary.
No.
I have a question.
I don't know if that was it objectively, because I mean I think ultimately the Prime Minister and all the ministers and stuff, their pensions are quite attractive, but I feel it was really this idea that you want to be the 7th Prime Minister.
7 years.
7 years. And he said it. He said election.
7.
And for him, that was a significant achievement. For the rest of them, I think it was.
7 do me. Well, 6 is completion. 7 is completion.
Unfortunately, although he is only into her second year, I think he will go down as history as being Barbados' worst Prime Minister ever.
There's no question about that.
I have a question.
It helped me as an analyst define, and I could say not only in Barbados but regionally, because he has surpassed the record of people like Tillman Thomas in Grenada. The defeat that the Democratic Labour Party suffered and that he suffered was worse than what Tillman Thomas suffered.
Stick a point.
Sorry, Kimon.
In terms of Tillman Thomas,
Right.
and Bustamante and Fernando Stewart. The personalities, like even like similar to David Granger, it's not that typical charismatic talisman that we look for in the Caribbean as it relates to a leader. So I obviously believe that played against him, one, and then the fact that Barbados usually respects that. We had David Thompson, we had Al Farrow, Motley, fairly charismatic people. So what gives a rise to these type of personalities throughout Caribbean politics, and what type of tide swings against them as it relates to longevity and survival of a prime minister?
That's a very interesting question, and you're right that we have a preference for the charismatic leader. My sense is that the type of system that we have politically makes it hard for Fernando Stewart to become prime minister in any situation other than the one where someone died. It makes it hard for Bree St. John to become prime minister in a situation other than when someone died. Because to become a prime minister in our Westminster system, you have to fight to gain it. So you have to have the tenacity of a Owen Arthur, of Mia Motley. And in many ways, Owen Arthur, I think, was also a gamble because Owen Arthur didn't present that type of tenacity. And indeed, neither did Henry Ford. But I tell you, Owen Arthur was, it was a good gamble. He was like Roosevelt Scarrett in Dominica. In that the party gambled on him, they gambled on his youth, and the gamble paid off. And it's the same thing in Dominica. We did not know that Scarrett would have become this person, but he did, and it paid off. I think the Tillman Thomas, the Granger, and the Fernando Stewart were a different kind of gamble. And in the case of Fernando Stewart, the gamble was a horrible gamble. It didn't pay off. But Tillman Thomas and Thing are different in that Tillman Thomas became Prime Minister of Grenada because the NDC has struggled with strong personalities like Peter David and Nazim Burke. Tillman was a moderate, centrist kind of guy, and he was somebody who everybody could agree on because he wasn't upset anyone. It's the same thing with Granger in Guyana. Granger was an army man. He was as honest as the day is long, and he is considered to be a good, clean guy. And that's what the PNC felt that they needed to basically offset the situation they had with the Alliance for Change. They have a lot of parties pulling and tugging, and they essentially wanted to insert somebody that was moderate and they felt could get the job done. So they agreed on him because he was not divisive. And I think in many ways Fernando Stewart was also that person because he appeared to be a kind of a nice guy that everyone could say, okay, yeah, we can agree on him because the other extreme, so you would have had people like Don Valinis and Chris Sinclair, who were more lightning rods, and you say, okay, you put him there, you agree on him because he's a person that we could all get along with. The challenge is that you have to be very careful when you're doing that about the times that you're in. And the challenge is that Fernando Stewart became Prime Minister just as Barbados was walking into a recession.
Who you think would have been the best pick up on the deathbed?
But I really don't know. I think it's well known that when Thompson was dying, that I supported Sinclair. I have come to wonder whether that would probably have been worse. It could have been, I don't know, because as Minister of Finance, he certainly was not an outstanding Minister of Finance.
Right.
But I don't know really who would have been a better choice, but I am thoroughly convinced in my mind that the choice that was made would have been a bad choice. Certainly Sinclair was more popular, and I feel that he would have had greater public support. It's possible also that Sinclair would have been more inclined to take advice. So I don't know, what, because up to now people don't know who were Fernando Stewart's advisors. Who did he listen to? Who was the person that he would sit down and could say to him, look, this is what you do. All of Thompson's advisors were either fired or left. And I'm not quite sure who he relied upon for the 10 years for the brilliant advice that he had.
So, okay, you made a point about gambling as well. So, the Democratic Labour Party right now, do you consider it to be a gamble with Bertha Lapisa?
Nobody thought Bertha was the best choice, but to start with, she was the only person that was nominated for his leadership.
But given, at first, shortly after the election, there was like a quick press conference with other players who were there as well.
This is the Fantastic Five.
Everyone will call it.
Fantastic Five.
Brother Pisa, Stephen Lashley, S-Wick. I can't remember who the two other persons there, but
yeah,
obviously
Doc Dominance is there.
Right,
Yeah, he was there as well.
So we all know what happened in his regard. So
which I think was unfortunate.
yes,
Yeah.
she's there right now. She's a leader right now,
Mhm.
and obviously she's interested in taking the party forward.
Mhm.
So what pros and cons arrive given that circumstance, and how do you see them going forward on the further?
Also,
Sorry,
to add to that,
sure.
do you think that Verla Pisa will be the leader in the next election?
That's a good question. I don't know. That one I really don't know. Certainly, if I were to advise the DLP, I would tell her if she wants to take it, why not? Because she's not going to win. And I don't know if anybody who is there is going to win.
Constitutionally, or based on the DLP constitution, she can't run again because I think she only has 2 terms.
No, the DLP doesn't have that prohibition. The
No.
BLP has it.
Oh,
Yeah, but the DLP...
so she can run as long as she wants.
The BLP forces the chairman to give up after 2 consecutive terms. But then you can come back again after a break. But the Democratic Labour Party doesn't have that prohibition.
So what about, we saw there were 2 elections where Stephen Lashley, what is it, Stephen? Step out.
Yeah.
Was it a case that, he thought that, okay, he could wait for a comeback closer to election, or he just didn't know what he's doing?
But let's discuss a couple of things, because we still have the unanswered question over here regarding the choice of Verla Pisa and whether she will last, and then we can actually look at Stephen Lashley. After the election, my sense is that the Democratic Labour Party needed to read the TVs, and the TVs said to me, we want nothing to do with you guys. None of the people who were in that government, we don't want anything to do with it. So I felt that what the party should have done is essentially turn their back on that whole group. I felt they needed to identify a person who was leadership material, that was young as possible, a person that could withstand the battering that is likely to come over the next 15 years. Right? Because if they think what David Thompson went through was hard, this is going to be considerably worse. So you need somebody who is politically young and strong enough to be able to take that and take the
When you say
punches.
young people, you're talking about
Young in years.
people, person like
Young in
Steve Martin,
political.
who's like young. 'Cause, I mean, what,
Well,
24, like that young, or you're saying maybe
He
30?
may be the next generation.
Okay, so you're talking about probably
So
30.
I felt a person that could lose 3 elections
Andrew Warren?
and still be, well, I mean, Verla Pisa is in that group.
Okay.
Because Verla can theoretically lose 3 elections and still be young enough to become a leader. So I felt that the person had to be young enough to withstand that. So against that background, I was looking outside of the candidates, outside of the former members of the government, and Verla presented herself. She was the only person that was nominated. And I thought, great, because she is a person who is young, and she wasn't really tainted by what happened because she was a senator, but she was not part of the government. And I felt that she could essentially withstand the battering and bruising that was likely to come. Now, having said that, there's some other considerations. You asked about other persons like Don Valinis and Stephen Lashley and whatnot. I mean, I don't think that any of those guys in this current environment could present themselves as a leadership option. And the reason for this is very simple. And I've said this to any of them that would ask my opinion. Anyone who subjected themselves to Francis George leadership, I question your judgment politically. And I don't know that you're going to be a good leader because you sat down in a cabinet that was led by Francis George, and you must have known that what was going on was pretty bad. You sat down in a cabinet with a man who took us past February. First time in the history of Barbados and any other Caribbean country that I've worked in that a government
Other country to ransom?
No, but the government essentially ran out of time. Parliament dissolved itself. Parliament has never dissolved itself before.
But it was his governance that bad, or you're exaggerating?
I'm not exaggerating, it was bad. It was bad, and I think that the sooner the Dems wake up to the fact that what was going on was bad, the sooner the Dems are going to be able to get their act together and present an alternative.
Is there anything
So my
on?
thing is, if a Don Valinis, well, Don Valinis has some special challenges, but if a Stephen Lashley then is to come back to lead Barbados in the DLP, I feel it has to be probably in another 5 years. when the taint of that last administration
After this
was
election,
resolved.
they're probably going to.
So what about Richard Seeley?
Again, Richard is being presented as a nice guy, but I have often felt that Richard has a little bit too much of fun in him. You know, he's the same kind of, you know, nice guy, you know, kind of decent image, not particularly energetic. And again, I didn't see the fight in there because my thing is that Richard was in, being the presumptive deputy, he was in a position to influence Frendel Stewart in a way that others couldn't. And I don't really know what he did to influence the hand of the leader.
Okay, so given the fact that we have Modi being the dominant person in the BLP right now, let's just say, not wishing this, but the same situation occurs with David Thompson.
The succession planning, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Within the BLP space.
I'm afraid to say it because last time I said that on the radio, I got myself in all kind of trouble. People said that I'm picking sides and whatnot.
Not that you may pick a side, but can
You
you?
who I like or who I feel could succeed? Right?
Who you feel could succeed or who shows
There are several options within the Barbados Labour Party that I believe could present an alternative to Mia Motley's leadership. Within the Democratic Labour Party, on the last occasion, there were not that many, and I think that was part of the problem. But I think in the BLP, there are several people, young or old, that people see as the type of person that would carry it forward. I said it before, and I am prepared to repeat it again now, that my pick for the alternative to Mia Motley would be Santia Bradshaw.
Amen to that.
Because Santia has a lot of the characteristics that I believe a leader needs to develop. She has political pedigree. She is youthful in her outlook, and she's also very uncharacteristic in the way that she's dealing with it.
Yeah.
And the more important thing is she's in the Ministry of Education.
So what about the likes of Carrie Simmons?
I think Kerry has been an interesting person. He's of my generation, and he's also a friend. But I do feel that Kerry, he played some bad cards in the past, and I think that has not endeared him to the heart and soul of the Barbados Labour Party. The BLP has been an interesting creature in that it has been fighting for office, but there has always been this tug of war between the Arthur camp and the Motley camp. And I think that anyone who got themselves straddled between those two, even though they're all in cabinet sitting together singing Kumbaya on a Sunday, I still feel that when it comes down to it, a lot of those people will be punished politically in terms of their aspiration of moving up in the party. Now, the Paynes, the Marshalls, the Toppins, they were also part of that group as well, but the difference is that those guys are past it politically and in a sense because they're looking at retirement, right? And most of those guys, if they don't leave this time, they probably will take another term and then they will
But Peter,
Simmons is different.
Peter, to look at that, I know that there is much talk going on about several ministers to leave the DLP camp this election. BLP camp, sorry. But what I kind of think is that, you know, some of these guys now feel in the streets of being in power and might stay because while we hear that the topic may be going home and we start to see people starting to, Cynthia says she's going home, she said that openly. We don't know if that's a fact till close, but what that be problematic in the sense that if there are persons like we've heard Trevor Prescott is one to go home because of health reason and other, but there's nothing publicly said, but we know that there are several people that are positioning themselves. Wouldn't that affect them because they don't know?
But you watched Pressy in action as a minister, and has he said or done anything that would lead you to believe that he's going anywhere?
I don't think he's going anywhere personally. I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think
he's a special kind of character that I realize there's some people who are just energized with politics.
Yeah.
And my feeling is that if he left politics, that might carry on faster.
Since we are on leadership, Barbadians usually support a very strong leader. Israel DePisa is seen as a strong leader amongst the members of the DLP, also amongst the country's constituents.
Okay. Then before you answer, just know for our viewers, we do take questions online. Nestor Philip, this is a regional guy here from I think Bahamas. Nestor, if I'm correct, they said what kind of bad card has Kerry Simmons played and how that hurt, and how is that supposed to really hurt him? That's the question.
Well, let me deal with Kerry after. But in terms of the current thing with DePisa, is DePisa, I don't really know that DePisa is seen as being the leader in waiting. I think part of the problem is that we expect her to be like Mia Motley. I think that people expect that she will be a Mia Motley, forgetting that Mia Motley did not present herself as the leader that she is when she came into politics in 1994, I believe is when she went. And I think that Verla will in time develop, but the challenge going in is that she's going in and she's developing as a leader while she doesn't even have a seat. So I think it's an unfair comparison, and I think that people's expectations of Verla are too great. I don't think she's doing herself any favors, I must tell you. But having said that, I think it is unfair to expect her to have a public appeal and a national appeal and that type of thing already. I feel I'm prepared to give her time, and I also feel that with guidance and whatnot, she may become a formidable leader, but she's certainly not there yet.
With the other juggernauts in waiting, does she really have time? Isn't this the time for her now to get out there and stand her ground and say, yes, I'm the leader, I am the alternative to Mia Motley. The DLP is still the second party. Right now, are they seen still as the second party in Barbados?
And that's the problem, because I think that instead of doing that, Verla is busy attacking the government at every turn. And what Verla needs to understand in Democratic Labour Party, you can probably carry back the message.
She's probably watching.
Is that it doesn't make sense telling people that this government has failed, because we have seen failure on a level that was hitherto unknown. So for the time being, just leave out that talk, because anytime you raise it, people are going to say, but how you can talk about failure after you just went through that? Hey, and there will come a time when our conversation and our narrative will change. We will say, well, but the reality of politics is that it's too soon for that. So I do agree that she needs to be spending time now working on the image of the Democratic Labour Party, and Verla cannot help anyone until she helps herself. So my thing is, get some candidate selection going, get yourself placed in a seat that you can win, and start working towards cementing people.
Which seat
But it's only obvious. There are two seats that St. Philip North. No, St. Lucy's is
St. Philip North is who?
St. Philip North, which is the one that Lash is running, right? And then you can have St. John. Those are the two strongest Democratic Labour Party seats.
But why would you say St. Philip North?
Because St. Philip North was the strongest seat.
If
you look at the data from the last election, the three seats that came home slowest would have been St. Philip North, St. John, and Northwest, which is where St. Clair was. Northwest, to me, behaved in that way because of the person, more so. But I think St. Philip North has that history, and St. John has that history.
But what we're hearing is that there's a number of the candidates
that want to come back,
and also
there's a super number 8.
I hear more than 8 because I've heard people tend.
But they can only come back if the leader brings them back.
But the question to that though, Peter, is
you all remember a guy named Arabara?
Yes.
Arabara was struggling in relation to Bridgetown, that he wanted a particular individual in Bridgetown. And I remember Arabara was making a well-known speech, and he said, look, I want this guy in Bridgetown, and if I can't get him in Bridgetown, look for a candidate for St. John. And I think that Verla has to become that person that says, look, you may have interest in running for a party. There are a lot of people that want interest in running for a party. Democratize the process of candidate selection. Ultimately, let the people get involved. And you also, as a leader, have to take a firm hand. Because I don't really know what is to be gained with bringing back 8 former members of the last administration.
But my question to that is
8?
It's more than 8. We are hearing about.
We
hear about 20. But here's my thing.
But then, does that bring back from
as it relates to fact, only one person has sent in a letter to council to run.
Which is Dennis Law.
So any other
Dennis Law sent in a letter?
Dennis
Law? I thought Ryan Walters has sent in a letter.
But Ryan Walters are not. It's not part of that.
Okay.
I'm talking about previously as far as.
But my thing is, Peter, is that I look at it as a whooping that the Democratic Labour Party would have helped. But I think it would be remiss to have at this point any of those members that would have been presenting themselves in the last election to come back. Reason why? You have persons like Kimarso and Simon and a number of other young candidates that could hold a post. I feel that just by bringing back, let me say I put 3 on the block. You could put your party back another 5-10 years just by bringing 3, and I'm not going to name them, but bringing 3 of your worst could put your party.
So bring them. So I mean, if this is what if Dennis Lowe feels that he's doing the Democratic Labour Party a favor by coming back as a candidate, then come back. And I guarantee you that if you get 2 or 3 of those old guys on the platform in 2025, it will be a far easy election for me and Marley to win, because the public of Barbados will ensure that the conversation they had before we start having the conversation.
And this goes back to when you mentioned just now about Verla being young and being able to carry the party for, let's say, for about 15 years, losing. As she start off by bringing these guys back, whether it be 2, 3, or the same 8, she's basically putting herself in a position where as Barbadians would not trust her, they would not want to hear about her, because it shows that she agrees to what these guys did in the past, and she agreed to the politics and bringing them back around them on the next election.
But one of the things that we look at too is that I think that persons that are interested on the DLP side should start to put themselves forward, because I consider, and when I have my conversation with Kimar and Simon and those other DLP that I know that are interested in politics, I said to them, you guys have nothing to lose. If I want to go up against Minister Wilfred, what is going to stop me? Because I know for sure a lot of the former DLP members, ministers or MPs can't stick their head above water too fast. But I am a young person, could go into Marcel, listen, I going up St. Michael Southeast. I could afford to say so because it will give me, people will be know my interest and give me enough time to build. But those other individuals can't sit their head above water.
I think y'all have been a little too harsh and unfair on Verla, especially and the DLP
on you, not Verla.
Right, but necessarily as it relates to these men coming back. She was here, and y'all know that Verla believes in youth and Verla believes in going forward. She also explained to you the process of how candidates.
I'm talking about Verla, talking about you. Or any other member.
I understand.
Right, okay.
I didn't get there. Which also explained the process of how candidates are selected. Now, if the younger members, particularly me as Simon, who are interested in running, there's a process, right? We would have are going through the process right now, and if we're selected, then you can.
So how Ryan Walters out the back and start running already?
Ryan is not running.
He's declared himself an interest.
He's declared.
But I mean, he start doing stuff that I think that you guys should start.
You see, Kimar, the challenge I think that Kimar faces, and Ryan and Simon and all of them, and I have always said, Simon is one of the guys in the DLP that I rather admire. The reality is that you can't present yourself as a candidate when there's no process to present yourself to, and that's the challenge. I mean, Verla understands all about how candidates are chosen in the Democratic Labour Party. Start the process.
Start it.
That's my thing to her. Is really within her grasp to say, within the first year of losing, you could have started the process of candidate selection.
Look at
what happened on Sunday, right, with the North, St. Michael West,
Gibbs and Leslie.
You have 1,000 people gathered to select a candidate for the Barbados Labour Party.
Yeah,
you know the kind of energy that brings?
Yeah, that was huge.
Right? It was huge. So I'm saying that the Democratic Labour Party can do that in 30 constituencies. And every time they do that, people see this huge gathering of people competing for the party. And it demonstrates that, look, this is an organization that people want to be part of. So to me, you need to have that kind of candidate selection process within the Democratic Labour Party where you have primaries and you have guys walking around registering people and building enthusiasm or whatnot. That is the kind of energy that the Dems need to have.
I was at the BLP nomination and to keep my own interest. But I'm telling you, I felt like it was in election mode.
Yes.
The energy was rich.
I know it was.
It was rich. And I was there firsthand to see that the DLP needs to start something
that's
like that.
That's the government in power.
I don't think it's the government in power anymore.
The Dems suffered a defeat and they're in a transformation process upward. Right? They're going upward. And it's a step-by-step process that they're taking. They're trying to rebuild trust among themselves, trying to recruit new membership. and they're doing things to bring back confidence within the party. Now,
Within the party, within, they should be
within the
right
party
there.
and obviously outward in a whole. So it takes a bit of time as well.
Irigan is asking, how are candidates chosen in the DLP? Peter Wickham.
But the process is the same. The DLP claims that
But
they
wait, you know,
can
Irene Sandy Fergana, she asked me a question that she already knows.
Oh, was Irene is asking?
Yes, Irene
I
Garner.
didn't realize it was Irene. But then when she asked the question.
I wonder why.
He's a novice supporter of the show.
The Democratic Labour Party has maintained that they do not have a tradition of primaries, which is what the Barbados Labour Party effectively has now.
Really,
They
people
have a
have the
tradition
same.
of primaries.
Yeah, scam is also on.
Right. I don't know what the passport that I had when I was a member of the Democratic Labour Party spoke to a process that could involve a primary.
Well, Mr. Cameron is saying we do not encourage rent a crowd.
Well,
Probably should,
let's
right?
ignore him. Right?
That's really
We're having a
We
serious
try to
conversation.
read. We try to read out something.
Right. And I'm saying that the DLP constitution, as I understand, I don't know whether it has been changed since I ceased to be
Tomorrow
a
will
member,
justify if it has.
can allow for primaries or
Yes.
other methods of competition within the party,
Right now,
which is identical to the Democratic Labour
Yeah,
Party's
I
Labour
support
Party.
that.
right now the branch has a greater say in terms of
Right.
candidate selection.
Which is fine. And I'm saying that within that context, the branches can have primaries. So
Yeah,
if it
persons
is
are interviewed,
Right.
persons are interviewed at the branch level, and then after that, the branch sends its recommendations to the executive.
but if a branch decided they wanted to have a primary and that they would do that based on a caucus, because that's another method. You can have a caucus or you can have a primary, a runoff. And you want to do your recommendation based on a runoff. There's nothing constitutionally to stop the Democratic Labour Party from doing it. The DLP did it back in the day when Leroy McLean ran against. I remember there was a nomination. It was David Thompson, Leroy McLean, and David Comishaw in St. John after our Barra Day. And they all attended the meeting. And I don't know if it was show of hands or secret ballot or what, but ultimately David Thompson was chosen as the candidate. Now I'm saying that if the DLP gets back to that, they can get a lot of energy. But when I say things like that, I hear people like, say Irene Stanley for Ghana that would tell me, oh, you don't know the process. Our process is different. No, my thing is that your process is only different because you want it to be different.
Not necessarily because it has to be.
There's nothing to be gained by the general council sitting down in a room and choosing candidates. There's a lot to be gained by empowering constituencies to choose their own candidates and creating a process where you have people out there canvassing and creating energy and whatnot. It democratizes the whole thing, and it's much better.
Because, for example, let's say Kimar Stewart went against Dennis Lowe. Now
Would you be going against Patrick Todd?
No. Let's say, for example, he goes against Dennis Lowe,
Epic.
and the branch decide that they want Kimar Stewart. But then when they then share the information with the general council and they then voted by the general council and they decide that they don't want him, what he said. So therefore, now Vera left was in the position, whereas she has a gentleman by the name of Dennis Lowe that she might not really want, but the branch voted for let's say Kimar Stewart. What she can do there?
Yeah, but that's a delicate thing because when you open yourself to the democratic process, you have to be prepared to accept the results. I am confident within myself that Prime Minister Motley was not exactly thrilled about some of the people that won primaries within the Barbados Labour Party. I don't think that if she had her say in terms of the team that she chose, there may be one or two that she would not have chosen. But you respect the process, you respect the fact that the candidate, the constituency identified and said, this is who I want, and you say, okay, I respect that, and I will work with you in that way.
Irene is here telling you that Peter Wickham, the process changed in August 2019.
Well then, you know what, if the DLP is convinced now that their process they have since August 2019 is a better process, and it is better to do it that way, then carry on smiling.
But I think that they need, I honestly believe the DLP needs to bring candidates. Are you?
No, but no, because if the DLP keeps telling me, right, what Irene is saying, the DLP has a different process, and their process is the better process, then
But I think Kimar didn't explain the current process, right?
What I'm saying is that if the current process is a process where the constituency branch has the ability to nominate someone, which can be rejected later, it is no different to the Barbados Labour parties. And I'm saying that your process by which you decide who you will nominate, it can be a caucus, like what happens in Ohio, where you can sit down among yourself and just choose them, or you can have a competitive electoral process at the branch level and say, oh, look, you're going to choose who you come up with. When Clyde Maskell was running, I remember when St. Michael South, when Clyde Maskell was running against David Thompson for leadership, right? St. Michael South wanted to determine who they should support, and they had a debate between the two individuals in St. Michael South. And based on the debate, they made their recommendation in terms of who they were going to choose going forward. But this is not for candidate, but this is in terms of the leadership.
Corey World is here advising the Democratic Party, and he's saying bring them back, bring all 16. All that will happen is that they will lose. They will get military love.
Okay, I want to touch on something before.
And deposits.
The leader of the opposition, actually, given the fact that he is the leader of the opposition and how he became leader of the opposition, do you see that hampering him in his re-election bid in St. Michael?
But he's dead in the water.
You think so?
Anthony has no political future. I don't hear people even say, but what gonna happen? Adley, listen, before Adley went in, Adley was clear that this was gonna be his last term. All of a sudden now Adley is saying that he has his political future ahead of him that is so bright. But I don't think that anybody really takes him seriously.
So what are the chances for
the question is whether Adley will save his deposit in the next election if he runs.
So what about the PDP?
Again, the PDP is a creature of convenience. The PDP is created so that Adley can have a cause and that they can benefit from some funds from the treasury. I don't really believe that the PDP has anything to do with any philosophical position. The PDP was formed out of convenience. If Adley was in the cabinet, no, there would be a PDP.
But my thing is, Peter, my thing is that I see personally that it has some pretty weak candidates, for the sense that we really don't really see all the candidates anymore, because before that come forward, the rest you don't see. I've seen that they were also made up of several former parties and parties that ran in the last election that all came together now to form.
But the core of the PDP, you have Reverend Adley and you have two senators, right? I have never heard anything from either of those senators that would lead me to believe that they're interested in politics. They have not indicated which constituency they're interested in running in. They have not talked about their political future in that way. And indeed, the female senator, I heard her once saying very, very clearly that she's not political.
When I see and I hear about the PDP,
right,
I first think of obviously Adley as leader,
right,
and then their so-called pitbull in
Caswell. I like Caswell. Caswell is solid, right? Caswell is solid as a trade unionist, and I think that Caswell is an asset to the Senate. The challenge is that we all know that Caswell ain't running for no seat. So how can you be a political party and your leading lights are not interested in politics? But if you're interested in politics, you're running for a seat.
But it doesn't say that Mr. Caswell Franklin is more heavy-hitter than also the leader himself.
Yeah, he's hard.
Yes, and that was showing up in the last discussion
on the marijuana. You know, he hit hard.
He had the leader, and the leader was there.
I like Caswell, and I actually feel that it was a good thing that Caswell ended up in the Senate, because you know one of the challenges of this 30 love scenario is that politics has become very boring. You know, so you listen to Parliament. No, it's like a mutual admiration society.
No, you say that based upon our laws, if Mr. Adley didn't cross the floor and decide to be the opposition leader, and then we stick with 30 love. I think in our constitution we must have an opposition.
Not really.
No.
Because the opposition leader, he is chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. And I believe that there would not be a chairman. Because remember in Grenada that happened. And Grenada can't change their constitution like how we can. So they've soldiered on with a situation where they have no opposition leader. What you do is you make the leader an independent senator, which is what they did. We would have done the same thing, but the opposition leader nominates, he's chairman of Public Accounts Committee, he nominates senators, he has to consult in relation to the appointment of judges. So there are various roles that he performs, but my sense is that as in Grenada, there was no opposition leader, but yet still those functions were performed. Well, because ultimately he can't object to, he has to consult, but he can't object to the judges.
So what do you think is one of his main reasons? I always thought that over the years when they tracked Mr. Adley, he hasn't really amalgamated much in political future in his past. So I think that this part was like that climax. When I hear him too, I hear a lot of the former Prime Minister, Arthur. He sounds like him, he speaks like him, and somehow I have a heavy degree that's his mentor in a sense, because I just hear a lot when I watch some debates from before. He just has this 100% in him that Arthur also carried. You don't have any idea what you think he would have crossed the floor.
But he said it when he was going in. I mean, he said it. He said it when he was going in that if he can't make a second 11, he could as well go on beyond the team. And that was his 11? Position. Yeah.
What's that?
Basically, he wasn't in the first 11. If you're gonna choose a cabinet, he essentially got 28 people in the cabinet. I am not one of them. It doesn't say a lot about me.
I thought it was
essentially what he's saying is that Prime Minister Mali has chosen a cabinet. She's 26 out of his 30. And she has made cabinet ministers. And he figured that being a cabinet minister before, at least he could have been among them.
Yeah, but the thing about it is
that
the people of that constituency voted for him to represent them.
I agree.
And when he took it upon himself to make a personal decision to leave and decide to go his way without consulting with his entire constituents and to be a minister on the cloth. Come on, man.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think what he did was flawed. I think it was poor judgment. But, the response was, why did he do it? And I think he did it because he felt that if he can be a cabinet minister, the reality is that he was planning to leave politics anyhow.
Correct.
So he could as well go in a blaze of glory. I mean, he's going to go out with a far higher salary and pension than he would have before. But, I mean, if we set that aside, realistically speaking, he is now recorded in history's page in a way that he would never have been recorded before. Because he would just have been another guy who sat on the backbench and then retired from politics.
And I thought it to be, for the fact that he never really climaxed a lot, I thought it would have been a good move personally. Because, I would have been just a backbencher in the parliament, say, don't hear my voice 1 or 2 times.
You got a whole office.
You got a whole office, you got a whole team, you got a whole party now. You got everything now at your disposal. So I think, yes, it was wrong, but in a sense, for him, I think, as you said, he cemented himself in. Because I've been a question, Peter, you think that anybody from within the 30 would have attempted to cross the sea?
A lot of people would, and I remember in the wake of the result, the day after the election, I got a call from one of the leaders of the Caribbean, and I'm not going to say who, and he said to me, I hope that Prime Minister Mali realizes that there are individuals in this situation that she has to be very, very careful with. And he made a point that if it was a male, but then all leaders are men anyhow, so he made a point that if a person is on the eve of their retirement from politics and they do not have a lot to lose, that is the worst thing that can happen in a situation where you win all the seats. And if you look back to Grenada in 1999 when it happened, soon after they sat in the opposition, Mitchell did not put an individual in the cabinet, and that individual crossed the floor and became leader of the opposition. All the characteristics that he had, he was a senior politician, he planned to leave politics soon, he had nothing to lose, and he said, but if I got 9 to lose and I had the backbench, I could as well. So essentially he was out of the league.
I made the point earlier on this show that I believe the Prime Minister's cabinet is so big because the persons who would have pulled that coup on her in 2013 are still there. And they have rather high level positions, so I assume that they were given these positions to be able to keep them at bay, because if they were left in the wing, they would do something right.
They have a big opposition.
No, you're very right. You're very right. If she had won, let's say there were 6 people in the opposition, I think that Parliament would be a very different place because the cabinet would be neat and small. We hear all this talk about efficiency. The size of the cabinet has nothing to do with efficiency. It has to do with political practicality. And I always say to people that it's alright to talk about the cabinet too big, but ultimately Prime Minister Mali realizes that if her government is going to succeed, it has to work. And we saw the danger that was caused by indiscipline within the party under the last administration. And she's determined that it's not going to happen in her government.
A question here from Nestor. Why not Reverend Adley for simply working to be a counterbalance and keep the government in check? Stop trying to paint the man in bad light Not
That's
everyone
what
is
I'm
prepared in good conscience to be a member of the bloated cabinet.
Next
of
story thing that Mr. Avali painted his own.
He said that he wanted to be that person. He said he wants to be a voice of reason and whatnot.
You're not
But
talking
he
that.
said that, but I mean, you know, my thing is he could be that on the backbench too.
But if not for Mr. Adley, though, we know there's a lot of stuff that flew under the radar. And
But he
didn't
also,
say-
what has he brought to light?
he was the first person that spoke about this Wickham contract.
You think?
Not necessarily.
Yes,
I don't agree.
It wasn't.
I don't agree. But the Wickham contract was in the secret.
but he spoke to it at first.
That's an opposition job.
But
come on.
I know, and Kimar, it's important that you're saying that because you are here as a supporter of the Democratic Labour
No,
Party.
I'm being fair in my analysis.
Which is fine. No, and I'm saying
The
that
moderator here.
I think, which is fine, but I'm saying I think that the Democratic Labour Party needs to be more concerned about Reverend Adderley. Because if anybody should have broken the White Hook story, if you're saying he broke it, because I don't think he did, it should have been the Democratic Labour
Of course,
Party.
they hear from
He's not attracted to the Democratic Labour Party. Anyway, the Democratic Labour Party
He
will
is.
regroup.
He actually is.
I don't think
He
so. They
is.
will regroup. and
Let's put it here. We got a question you can tell you
Kimar, I made a point in the last election that all of these little parties, the UPP and the solutions and all of them, is y'all guys that caused the Democratic Labour Party to be in this
So you have
situation.
some votes, man.
And then people were telling me, oh, you don't know nothing about politics. All of these people are former Bs. They're going to tear up the Barbados Labour Party. Right? And I said, my understanding of it, in terms of my work in the region, and I understand whenever you have all of these parties, it essentially detracts from the solid, the more solid political force.
Yeah.
And what I found then, and I am seeing the same thing now, is that the PDP and all these other parties are going to be the reason that the Democratic Labour Party is going to struggle again in the next election.
A question here from Jocelyn Mariner. Mr. Wickham, could the Prime Minister have called a by-election? He was elected to represent a certain constituency and he decided to cross the border. Just
It's a pity that she couldn't, but she can't.
She can. Okay.
Yeah, it's a pity that she couldn't. What she would have to do if she wanted to achieve that is call another general election, which is far too disruptive.
The question here from one of the guys on WhatsApp: do you believe the PDP should focus more of their fight towards the DLP so as to create space for themselves?
PDP should focus more of their fight on the DLP.
The DLP, so as to create space for themselves.
That's an interesting question. I guess they would do that if they were really interested in opposition politics. If the PDP was serious about their future, yes, that would be a strategy. But I am not convinced that the PDP is really serious about.
The PDP is not a threat to the Democratic Labour Party.
I'm telling you,
Yeah, so what's the threat? And then even in politics.
I tell you, it is a threat to the Democratic Labour Party.
But Peter, my thing is, I saw in politics in Tobago, one of my friends here, he's in, I think, cabinet in Tobago, and I saw when they were coming to light as a political group, they didn't focus on having 30 candidates or whatever, because let's say it was 30. They focused on five persons that were like young, ambitious, and well known, and they won 3 out of the 5. And now they have like what you call, multiple parties being in parliament or being in cabinet. No, parliament, sorry. So I think when I look at the DLP in a sense, or when I look at the PDP and all these emerging parties, is that I won't be worrying right now at this time about winning the election. I'll be worried about at least getting 2 to 3 persons in there to have my substance as
So
a party.
which two is the PDP going to run? Because I'm trying to
When they got
understand
Scott
other
Weatherhead
than
and Paul Gibson, they just lost 2 persons. We saw a nomination for 2 just after
I
they
saw that, but what is the track record of those 2 individuals?
well, again,
Right. My issue with coming from a third party perspective,
still a third party.
right?
I'm danger, your card.
You don't have a grounding, you don't have a base.
Who
Politics is one.
don't have a base? The PDP?
PDP or any newer party.
Are these bases DLP?
Alright, just give me a here. The ability to win an election is based on being able to mobilize people. We're the constituency offices for the quote unquote.
I believe has one.
Well, besides him, any other.
But then you go ask the DLP the same question.
But-
You
else have a branch.
go ask the DLP the
But-
same
but-
question.
No has a branch office.
Right.
Yeah, I heard it was over.
When it comes to getting people to the polls, any newer party coming in has to focus not necessarily on the national politics of the country, but more of the people. So getting into the constituencies, doing work, getting people familiar with you, familiar being a candidate. Because Right now you have people shadowing ministries. Ask them what constituency they're running in, can't tell you.
Sure.
Ask them about 10 gaps in their community, can't tell you. What
But
community
hold on,
budgets they
but hold on.
What is so
Let's
different
take
now
a
for the
break there.
DLP? That's my question. What is so
Speaking
different there?
about guys that shadow ministries, we have a leader of the Democratic Party. The second party, the one I call the second party right now, Kimarsi the third. That the leader have not yet said to the public of Barbados which constituency she is running for.
She said she will announce it soon.
Okay, the PDP
So
will be
maybe 10 years or no?
She said
But
no, she said that in December that after the Arabara centennial thing, they would have a big announcement.
Centennial
And
celebration
flurry-
next week, by the way.
A flurry
So
of
therefore we
activities.
do
It's true that
so we can resign next week.
I can't.
But my thing to me, the only thing though, Kimar, for me it sounds contradictory. That you're saying that the PDP doesn't have any of these things, but you have to.
the PDP alone.
But no, what I'm saying is no. Cause we can't, I'm not, solutions ain't got a body, so I'm going there. I see Lynette come up with a body, so I'm going there. Between the three most known parties, the DLP in itself had.
You gave her rule that.
Oh please, the DLP in itself has not. If you were at the level surpass everything you say, I could respect. But right now you are in the same position as Liam. Had he got more voice and say than you is because he sits in parliament.
I think
And he is
position.
the official opposition. You're not. That was a big thing somebody even put in the paper and in some comments that we keep referring to the DLP as the opposition. The DLP is not the opposition.
The DLP is still the people's opposition.
No. I can't want the people's.
Kima, I have always argued that the Democratic Labour Party is the
People's
de
opposition.
facto opposition.
Correct. But in all fairness, Joe Adley Party is the official.
Is the voice or the alternative voice politically in Barbados because it is the party that got the second most votes. So I think that certainly the Democratic Labour Party and Bertie de Pisa as the leader carry greater legitimacy in speaking on behalf of alternative political opinion than the PDP does, because the PDP has not been elected, has never faced an election. The one person who sits in parliament was chosen to be a member of the team that he now opposes. So I don't really see that. Yes, he is the legitimate. He is the de jure opposition leader, but I think the de facto opposition leader is Bertie de Pisa.
Go ahead.
And next question for WhatsApp. A considerable number of DLP supporters did not vote last election. Do you think that if they vote in the next election, will it result in the DLP winning some seats?
It could, but the question is whether they will vote in the next election. And I'll tell you something interesting. The 1999 result, in which the Democratic Labour Party lost seats like the same St. Michael West and Northwest, that were seats the DLP had never been lost before, was precipitated by 1994. And what happened in 1994 was that we had the National Democratic Party, was led by Richie Haynes, and it created this ethos where there were people who were former Dems that started to realize, you know what, I could actually vote for somebody else. We were talking about this off here before we started. People believe that all of these people who didn't vote in the last election will naturally come back and vote in the next election. I have spoken to some of those people who have said to me, you know what, I didn't vote in the last election and it felt good. I will never vote again. You have to be very, very careful that we don't assume that all of those people who were disenchanted and didn't vote will become enchanted the next time. If a lot of those people see, well, you know what, before we had bad bus service, we had bad water service, we didn't have a polyclinic in St. John. Now I'm saying these are issues that are unresolved. But let's say that they are resolved satisfactorily by the time the next election comes. What good reason is a person in St. John who has better roads, better services, have for saying, oh, I'm going to go and vote against the Barbados Labour Party? We got to be really careful, because I agree with the WhatsApper that if those people come back and vote, the DLP will win back some seats. My concern is that those people may very well become active and say, you know what, I kind of like it better this way, and I will vote in this way. And the example you have is 1999. And as I said, 1999 was created because there were a whole lot of people in places like St. James South that were diehard Dems, that my neighbors that never would have considered voting against the Democratic Labour Party before. But when they saw the possibilities of electing an NDP, and they voted for Wendell McLean, they said, well, you know, and then what happened? Liz Thompson wins. So let's be careful that we don't assume.
But in that case, then for strongholds like St. George North and St. Thomas, you're saying that
there's no strongholds again.
There are no strongholds there on the BLP side, and they're standing.
But and the Prime Minister has made it clear that she understands that this whole idea of political strength is something that can change. Right now, hers is the strongest seat. She got 80-something% of the total popular vote. It's one of the strongest in the region, right? But she's conscious of the fact that that could change, because if St. John could change, anywhere could change. So the lesson should go both ways. The lesson should be a lesson to the Dems and also to the Bs. That if you do foolishness, you could very well suffer the same fate.
Gentlemen, I just want to switch. I know that Irene had asked why the last 36 minutes of the show would have been dedicated to the DLP. By no means the show is dedicated to the DLP. The conversation is just going and we are flowing with the conversation.
Let's talk about the DLP. I think we need to talk about the DLP some more.
I want to switch the narrative though a little bit. I love to talk about the DLP. I just want to switch the narrative a little bit onto, and this has been a pet peeve for me in the sense that the BLP. Now, we've seen the government in power. We are hearing a lot more from the Prime Minister. Some say too much. We are seeing the ministers, and I really, before we end the show, I really want to touch on we will get back to the DLP though, Irene, you can rest assured. But sooner rather than later. And I think it will be a topic for a long time to come, so I think she better get used to that for sure. No, I mean, get used to it. I mean, whether it's this show or not,
Irene is my friend too.
I like Irene bad, you know, but she have to get the fact that this and many things is going to be talked about for a world to come. But we've seen some of the ministers from the Barbados Labour Party and on our ground, and being know that we are young moderators, you're a seasoned veteran moderator by now. Getting ready for retirement soon. We've heard people come up to us and to talk about things that the BLP is doing on the show, and some of the people are not pleased with some of the decisions the BLP has taken. Some people are not pleased with some of the ministers, especially with the Ministry of Transportation, like Peter Phillips and William Duguay. I know we're hearing Trevor Prescott, where he's mentioned in the paper he's not Jesus. That obviously
should thought would have been obvious.
Very obvious a lot. So I don't know if you have done any polling as a Saints election, but what are your thoughts as it relates to how the performance of the Barbados Labour Party is doing and some of the ministers?
In the 100 days assessment, right? I didn't do any polling, but in the first year assessment of the DLP, I did it. It was only 100 days. It was the first year. I did a fairly comprehensive analysis, and my sense is that the Barbados Labour Party has been good at the politics and the political battles and communication and whatnot. And I think that they understood where Front of Stroke fell short. Look, let's face it, Prime Minister Motley is everything that Front of Stroke was not. He did not like communicating, and she likes to communicate too much. She over-communicates. She talks to you all the time. She talks for a long time. I am not a big fan of long speeches. She is. So the 4-hour budget thing, that lost me, right? And I said this to her personally, that is not my thing. Because I think if you can budget for the United Kingdom in 20 minutes, you can budget for Barbados in 30 minutes. You don't need 4 hours. But that's her style. So I'm saying those battles, I think she's done well in. But there's some challenges that the Barbados Labour Party has. And one of the challenges is, I am not including the large cabinet and stuff as a challenge because I understand the politics of that. But I agree with everyone that transportation has been a problem. I had an experience a few weeks ago where I went up to St. John to pick up someone who was helping me around the house with some stuff, who lived in St. John. And while I was there, going for him simply because he had been waiting for 3 hours for a bus. And if I wanted to get my work done, it's better for me to go and fetch him and bring him down. So I said, well, let's bring down this lady at the bus stop. One thing, because she was there at the bus stop waiting. And she got in the car. We're going down the road and she's telling me about the challenges that she has in terms of getting and keeping a job and living in St. John. And saying to me that it's come to the point where she is prepared to sleep by friends so she can get to work on time when she has to work 11 o'clock shift or whenever. And the boss always tell you, oh, go to work earlier. When it's not often an option. public transportation is a problem. I think it is a crisis, and I think it continues to be a problem. There's a high level of indiscipline with the PSVs. The transport board continues to be problematic, and people are still waiting at bus stops for too long. It is unconscionable that anybody should be at a bus stop for 3 hours.
Well, how do you think the ministers have been engaging in
but
public
see,
and this and that?
that's the part. I do feel that Dugan has been making an effort to communicate, and he has been trying. The problem is that there is this perception the public has, is that this problem can be fixed. And I think the BLP contributed to it as well. This problem can be fixed quickly. When the reality is that it is not a quick problem to fix. Public transportation became a mess. It started to become a mess in the 1980s. And that has brought us to the situation that we are. We can't fix it overnight. So I appreciate that it's going to take a while, but I do feel that during the election campaign, people were of the opinion that when they woke up the day after the election, that some things would be a problem.
So you're saying it was sanitation?
And that's the other Achilles heel.
Okay.
So I'm saying 3 things. I think sanitation, I think transportation, and I think water.
Okay.
Those are 3 of the challenges that we will have, and the water for a lot of people is particularly egregious because they're paying more for it now.
Yes, those are what I call the micro issues, right?
Yeah.
Which is okay to focus on. But I want to talk about the fact that when the Prime Minister, whenever she's in the island, it seems that she has to come out and save a lot of her cabinet ministers. Particularly, she saved Duguid countless times. And the last article I saw with her coming out, and this is with the nurses, with the Minister of Health. So, John Public looking on is saying, hey, well, are these other ministers working? Are they effective? Why can't they be the ones announcing this information to the public? Why does the Prime Minister have to come and hover over a lot of her ministers to come and announce policies and announce these things? These guys are getting paid. So what the use for this large cabinet as she's the one who has to come and do majority of the talking? You don't know.
No, I don't know. I understand the argument very well. And I do feel that it's an issue that needs to be addressed. I think that there's clearly a conversation that needs to be had within the cabinet. I don't know whether ministers don't fully understand the breadth of their power. The transport thing with Duguid is an interesting one because my understanding is that the question of the sticker is really a Ministry of Finance matter and not a transportation matter. People kept perceiving it as a Duguid matter and kept asking him, and Duguid kept saying, it's not really something for me. You need to deal with finance because of the finance.
So why do you don't say that publicly? Because you maybe
Yeah, but you see, this is why I said that there clearly has to be an internal conversation in terms of where the power lies and who has the ability to do that. If it is that the ministers are not exercising the full power that they have, that's one thing. Or could it be a situation where people are not convinced that the minister has that power? So, for example, when the minibus guys have a strike and they call for the Prime Minister, they don't help the situation because essentially what they have done is they have undermined the minister responsible. So then when he comes to a meeting, he doesn't really have the capacity to deal with the problem in the way that he would have dealt with it because ultimately people saying, well, send for the Prime Minister.
Well, I think, do you think that the Prime Minister
you have made a comment about the traveling though, so anyhow we can get back to that because that clearly is a
big issue. I was just asking you to go back on it. Do you think that
slipping that one?
Yeah, do you think that the Prime Minister is doing herself an injustice as it relates to where you made the comment that so much people calling for everything there's an issue now in Barbados. I mean, at the other day we had an issue with NGOs receiving a letter that you have to fill out a survey, and if you don't fill out a survey,
you won't get any money.
They're actually kicking us off the registry, which I find was crazy. Now, a survey does speak to, I don't have to fill out a survey is an optional thing. Now, when they sent the thing around to the NGOs, and that's why people is calling for her so much.
And I can't blame people because administration works slowly. Right? And normally you would call the minister and he would say, you get a PS and this and this and that and next and the third. And there's this whole game that public servants play. The beauty is that you have a Prime Minister who will walk into a room and you will say to her, I need to have this pen move. And she would say, well then let's just move it. And they said, but we need to let her to move it. She said, already let her know. Let's just move it.
Yeah.
So if it is that you want this pen moved, you call the Prime Minister, the pen is moved, then you're going to say, well, the next time you need a pen moved, you just need to call the Prime Minister.
So
That is the Prime Minister's personality, and I think people got to be fair and understand that that is a part of Mia Mottley's personality, is that she is a workaholic, she works hard, she works long, and she likes to get things done. She likes to tick boxes, right? As compared to Frandus Shore, who like to reflect on decisions long and hard. And there are advantages to that kind of reflection. But there's an advantage to that kind of reflection, but there's also an advantage to getting things done. And I mean, regionally, it's the same thing, that there are prime ministers who are more active than others. And you know, one of the things with small states is that invariably people look to leadership. We have never had that in Barbados, because Barbados, Trinidad, and Jamaica tend to be a little different. But Dominica, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, they are accustomed to the idea of everything that has to be done. If you want a blood pressure apparatus installed in a public building, you call the Prime Minister.
Brother Peter is asking, Peter, is Peter suggesting that other ministers have no personality?
But I didn't say that.
We just read the comment.
but in that case though, I think men gotta start getting fair, because if it is that, but hold on, I didn't use my point. If it is right,
He is
he is the manager, right? I want them to do every time I try to get something do through he, I can't get do. I gotta run to the money, the bigger boss, to tell you they can't get do. So what's the purpose for he fire he?
I understand your argument. I understand your argument, but that's saying it has to work. It has to work two ways. And one way is that, yes, I agree that there are challenges where people don't feel the ministers in the way that they should feel them. But I'm saying that if the ministers don't feel themselves in that way, if the ministers don't feel empowered in the way that they should, if they don't feel that they have the right to take decisions and to pick up something and to run with it, if they don't believe that they have that right, then the whole situation isn't going to work.
Do you think it's because some of them are the younger ministers, they don't feel in it?
I don't know that that's the case. If you look at, for example, the situation with the Attorney General of Home Affairs, right? There's a very, very fine line between the responsibilities of Attorney General and responsibilities of Home Affairs. And if you have two ministers who have those responsibilities that are shared, and everybody is concerned that they don't match the other person's toe, you can very well have a situation where there's some matters where you say you take a hands off. One of the reorganizations that we have already seen is in that same ministry, and everybody was saying it was a slap in the face for one of the ministers, for Hinkson, because he had stuff taken away from him. Well, my feeling was that it had more to do with the fact that there was a logical administration, and it seemed to gel better to have the Attorney General deal with certain matters because he could deal with them efficiently. So I think it may very well be a matter of communication, but Kimar, I am willing to concede to you that there's some optics there that need to be looked at, because there are impressions that definitely are being created, and it's not helpful.
Peter, can I ask a question?
We haven't heard you all day.
Oh, sorry. I decided to.
And you're wearing a DLP shirt too, that's the thing.
This is actually one of the colors of the Barbados Day Party as well.
Really? Yellow?
Yeah.
Yes, it's actually running.
It's actually running yellow.
Yeah.
And I have taken the stance that I can wear any color I want in
yeah.
Barbados, because DLP doesn't make a difference to me. Alright? What do you, we're speaking about the current government and the ministers in this government. Now, we know we have a lot of more or less we call senior ministers. How effective do you think the junior ministers are performing?
I mean, compared to the senior ministers, I don't think there's any difference in terms of their efficacy.
But do you think they're actually doing work?
You mean junior ministers?
Yeah.
But then what do they have to do? What's the responsibility? What responsibility did Patrick Todd have in the Ministry of Education?
Show up by every day, the minister will show them up. That was it.
No, and generally speaking, when you're a junior minister, you're given responsibilities. The substantive minister, you give you responsibilities to deal with certain issues, and essentially that's what you do.
But the argument could be made that when the Barbados Labour Party was in opposition, the Barbados Labour Party clearly said that the then government had 17 ministers, and you could actually do the work with 12. Now you have 26, and a lot of them are junior ministers, and the public in Barbados looking on would say, look, I don't care if you're a junior minister or a senior
We
minister.
have about 3 junior ministers.
Well, you got a minister, if you have a minister in the ministry.
But
Sure.
then some people may argue it's
Sure.
3 too many.
Right,
Yeah.
so
Well,
if you have these individuals who would be perceived as junior ministers, and then you have parliamentary secretaries and that sort of stuff, they are drawing a salary from the Treasury of Barbados. They are part of the cabinet. You are perceived as part of the government, and it would be remiss upon you to show your worth for the money that you're getting when you come.
Right. When the Prime Minister had to choose a cabinet, and I'm taking you back here for an important reason, I think that there were some factors that she had to take into consideration.
Yeah.
There were some fairly high profile people that had left well-paying jobs long before the election and had decided to get into politics. Okay?
Yeah.
When you become a member of parliament, one of the hardest things to do is to find work. And I remember Oinaka's famous speech that he made on the floor of parliament just before he became leader of the opposition.
I remember.
It's not easy to be a backbench MP and to work for anyone unless you're an attorney at law. It's very, very difficult to do. So you had a number of people in there who are not attorneys at law, who left jobs and who needed to be employed. So that's a factor you have to take into consideration. There are other people who are outstanding political talents that had to be in the cabinet because they have skills and energy politically that you need to tap into. And then there are other people who you needed to have in the cabinet because if they were outside the cabinet, they would be mischievous. And I had said this after the election, when you had this huge 30 love, that my expectation is that the Prime Minister would have left very, very few people on the backbench because all of these are things that she had to take into consideration. So you put on the backbench people who you felt were trusted,
Okay.
people who have a way of supporting themselves financially, that they don't have to rely on the public purse. And those are the kinds of people that ended up on the backbench.
So we
So ironically, Adderley was trusted, but Adderley was one of the first that crossed.
So essentially what we are doing is paying for a political game that's being played out.
You call it a game, but I think it is more than a game. And I think that we understand the cost of political mistakes and errors in Barbados because we have lived through 94, and the crisis in 91. We have lived through the last 10 years, and we understand if you do not practice good politics, the whole thing falls apart.
I mean, I don't
You remember some time ago, Arthur took a decision that he was going to give every minister a professional assistant. So that was the personal assistant culture. It's costly to the public purse. And you had ministers like Louis Teller, whatnot, that was Minister of Education, and he did the whole thing on his own. He never had a personal assistant. But the reality is that there's political work to be done, and I think that we all understand that it's a valuable contribution. So as a result, as a public, we have to pay for it.
But just
Look
want to
at
read the
how
comment
many
from
political advisors the President of the United States has.
too much.
Right? Perhaps.
Let me read this question from Sean Rollins. Please remember that a lot of them are new and inexperienced. So I guess the PM preferred to make those decisions. I honestly can't blame her. It's not brain science. Let me see what Irene. We just want to say welcome to Dwayne Howard. He's all the way in the United States watching. Irene is saying again, UK has 66 MPs, a 66 million population and a cabinet of 22. Cabinet size of Barbados is unjustifiable, plain and simple.
A question from WhatsApp. There have been numerous posts on social media stating there needs to be a reshuffling of the cabinet. Do you share a similar view? And if yes, who would you move and where would you
That's easy
where
to
would you
answer,
decide to
that's
do
easy to
such?
answer because I don't share that view. I hear people talking about, well, why do we need a reshuffle?
I agree with you 100%.
What is the? I don't understand why we need a reshuffle.
The vision is the same. Cabinet is still the same.
I honestly don't know if we need a reshuffle.
You think we needed a reshuffle on the last administration?
The problem, I don't think we need a reshuffle. And who we gonna put where?
Same people.
There were ministers that people felt should have been fired, and I wouldn't disagree that was the case under the last administration. But I really can't think of any minister that has been so horribly bad that the person needs to be fired. And I don't know why people feel that after a year you should just change up.
And I guess obviously with the current issues, I think they may be more looking at Abrams because of the water issues, maybe looking at Petro Prescott in terms of garbage trucks, maybe looking at Fugate in terms
but
of
the thing is, are these
but
people?
let's isolate Abrams in water, right? People are raising issues in regard to water, and they're forgetting the fact that within a few weeks of them being in office, they were able to deal with the sewage problem on the West Coast.
Well, you know, Beijing's
Right.
memories are very.
And then the same Abrams was in Bridgetown
Sure.
when he cleaned up the second tank, essentially averting a potential problem. So it's hard to heap abuse on an individual now because he's essentially increasing the water pressure and the pipes bursting. I mean,
my problem is, right, I was looking at it, in case of a reshuffle, I was looking at it from an expertise point of view.
Your brother is saying not a reshuffle, a firing.
yeah, that's the one.
That can happen too, but we keep it in.
I wonder if Verdo was fairly 16 that won't come back.
I could make a comment.
Let Kimar finish. Let Kimar finish,
I
and
want to
then
look at it from an expertise.
then we come on to each other.
I know the Minister of Agriculture, not as an agriculturalist, but more of a tourism man. So
In the Oriental Travel Center.
yes, so when he got that ministry, I was a bit shocked as to like, what's he doing there. Also, Colonel Boston, I was looking at it like,
Soldier.
where is he, Minister of Health? Looking at it from that point of view, but
Why did you disgrace St. Louis Minister of Finance?
even like Abrams, recently he was the acting minister of legal affairs. I know him as previous head of the Bar Association.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I was seeing some misfits as it relates to portfolio allocation.
Yeah.
So I mean, if ever reshuffle is to happen, I would look it, or firing, I would look it to be more suited towards
Right.
capability.
We have a misconception in the Caribbean that a person should have professional background in the thing that they're doing. And my experience in terms of ministers is that invariably some of the better ministers are ministers that don't share a professional interest in that.
They have a passion.
I've heard doctors in the hospital always saying that they are happiest when a person who is minister is not a doctor. Because he basically stands off and sees the issues from a policy level and doesn't attempt to say, this is how you're supposed to remove a person's appendix and not that way. And he says, let me make sure that when you go to do an operation, that all the necessary tools that you have, that you need, are at your disposal. Let me deal with that from a policy perspective, and let me not get into the minutiae of what you do. So that argument, I don't support it because I don't think that, as I look at persons across the region that have been outstanding leaders and whatnot, thing as a mathematician, Keith Mitchell, right? You've had Patrick Manning was a geologist. David Thompson was a lawyer, yes, and so is Mia Motley. In the United Kingdom, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Gordon Brown, who was a brilliant Chancellor, right? He's a historian.
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to bring that as well.
So I don't know that we feel that there has to be this
But
professional expertise.
it's a thin line.
Yeah, I think
Because
it's a thin line.
persons argue that he made the point with Chris Sinclair. Persons argue that he's only a trade specialist. He don't have
That wasn't the problem. Chris is a trade specialist.
No, he was an NGO leader of RCDC.
Really? I didn't know that he was a trade specialist.
His master's in international trade policy.
I used to teach international trade policy and trade specialist.
No, not.
It's a t-shirt course.
But
They'll come across the Chris.
I never saw Chris.
Was a first minister of foreign affairs?
He was
But
foreign
no,
affairs
I call
minister.
it-
He was
Yeah.
foreign affairs minister first. Chris was
Yes,
foreign
he was.
affairs minister.
Before he went over to social care.
My sense is,
Like
and then,
social care.
right, and then he went to social care after. But when he went in, he was foreign affairs minister because as NGO,
Right.
he had a lot of international
CPDC
exposure,
would have been
and
linked.
it was about that. So then he was brought down to social care because they realized that with Chris in the air all the time, you needed political skills on the ground. And that's why he went to social care. So there's always a fit in terms of what skills you need the person to bring to the table. And I don't believe it should be necessary for the individual to have any strong background in that area. Because in many instances it's a bad idea. So you just take a person that has, good skills in terms of management.
I would not feel comfortable with So like a new role as Minister of Finance or
Minister Social.
No,
Yeah, but
no,
the problems that Sinclair had in terms of finance had nothing to do with his lack of background in finance. Because I don't really know that he was ill-equipped to be Minister of Finance. The problem is that he did not have the power to do what he needed to do as Finance Minister. But we could do a whole program on Chris, right?
But
Which is not the
still, okay. You're in an environment with technocrats, right? And people.
But you're not a technocrat.
But you are not a technocrat. Okay.
Right.
You relate to financing. You have I would say a degree in social work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your responsibility now is the Minister of Finance. You have no idea about finance, you know nothing. And you have technocrats sitting advising you speaking financial terms and what's not. No. Unless you really take the time to sit down and really research and take your personal responsibility in that ministry, then whatever they say kind of goes until you understand. Right? Which is they could make you they could either make your career or break your career based on the advice that they're giving you. Now, if you don't have an understanding as to what they're saying, anything could come up and I would say sign. May not be dangerous or anything, but you may sign, and then when you realize the policy, it may not be what you expected or what you intended it to be.
I'm not agreeing with that at all. The fact of the matter is that our Prime Minister is not trained in. She's a lawyer. She's a lawyer. I think she's an outstanding finance minister, but she's not a lawyer.
But she had experience in
before that. Yeah, but not in finance. Well, I guess she was finance, economic affairs coming on to the end. But you look at Arabara, you look at Tom Adams, you look at all the other leaders. I mean, Arthur was the first economist that we had as finance minister that one could argue was trained for that. But before that, we had outstanding finance ministers. Tom was a good one. Tom was a lawyer. Tom never sat down in the cabinet before he became prime minister. But Tom was an outstanding finance minister. Arabara was in the same situation. Bradley Adams before him. I mean, this perception that not Kenny Anthony, Chastanet, right? Chastanet is a businessman. He's finance minister in St. Lucia, and again, he never even sat in parliament before he became a prime minister.
As Minister of Finance, though, there's a certain level of, I would say, prestige and power that's attached to the portfolio.
Agreed.
So you will not want to give the portfolio to just any old person. You as prime minister, I would say, one of the.
You saying that's what Stuart did?
That's not what.
You might be contradicting yourself here.
No, I'm not. No, I am not. No, I am not.
But know that the DLP did none of these, and obviously.
But I'm not speaking from my perspective.
Question, Kimura, question. No, since you're speaking about portfolios and having the technical background, the profession, professional education in that particular area. Currently, right now, from the Democratic Party side, who's the economist?
Spokesman.
Yes, who's the spokesman on the financial matters right now?
A lawyer.
Yes.
Verdi P's a lawyer.
Is who?
Verdi.
What is Verdi's background in economics and financial affairs? That based on what you're saying, because based on what you're saying that Verdi therefore should not be the person speaking on finance.
That's not what he said.
No.
But she has no education based upon no formal education in terms of finance. She's a lawyer.
I made the point about advisors and technocrats and what's not. So she has advisors and technocrats that advise.
And who are these people?
You are still.
No, because that in my opinion, that is another challenge the Democratic Labour Party.
You don't know who.
I think you have to work with the CIA to find out who the advisors are, because we asked that question and we weren't.
I'm not one. I'm not one.
That is correct.
I want that to be paid.
You have to have the proper finance team,
inclusive of a sociologist as well as
Oh, there's a sociologist in there. That's right, Governor is a sociologist.
Wait, you're saying that they have a proper finance team based upon you knowing who they are, or you're just saying that because that's what the president said?
I think you know he's a member of the Democratic Labour Party.
He should be a member of the party. He studied finance and economics.
Show me the secret.
right? If it does any good, I study banking and finance.
So that means you're advisor. So we shall blame you.
My thing is that I don't see why these things need to be a secret, right? If the Democratic Labour Party has a finance team, it should stay there, because I think that will help a lot of people to feel a lot more comfortable about the fact that the finance issue is being handled appropriately.
And that they don't find themselves back in the same situation again.
You know, there's all this often saying that there are people who, whilst they may identify with a party and want to assist a party, they don't necessarily want themselves to be thrown in the public spotlight at too early a stage. So I mean,
because they're
but if you're building back confidence, where the Democratic Party, you're building back confidence.
You gotta build it.
They got to say, because you, if I remember telling Kimar them off here many times, if I was to jump in the DLP, I will be announcing where we're going to bid. I will at the same time, because again, people, you have to build that confidence with people that they're going to see, okay, you got a competent person that's going to run, you have competent people guiding you have competent people coming forth. But if you don't do that, the party will continue to lose. And my fear is if there's a party that arises, and when I say a party that arises, I see my guy Corey World on listening. If you have some young budding people that people trust, like the Corey World, the Corey Lanes, the Kimar Savary, so and you get a strong young party that people respect and people could give a chance, I fear that the DLP and some of the other party could be kicked out of the box easy.
I don't feel so. I think the DLP is really the only other legitimate voice.
You don't see another, after a young body, you don't see a young body party come, they will be giving some licks.
But how? Because the Solutions Barbados was young budding, and I mean,
well, they may have the
Solutions Barbados was one person.
But they may have the candidates that really spoke to the people. I mean, candidates are, again, if let's say the DLP will have to try to reach out to some young people that yeah, but are they going to, obviously a lot of people, and I may speak for myself, are going to be very cautious if we are called. Because at the end of the day,
you know what, the issue is not only about submitting a letter to run an election. The party needs officers, people who are willing to come in and serve in the branches and help out and do stuff, work within the party, and not only think of running the seat.
But every time you put a kid in a branch, and I care about running the seat.
But that's really the problem. That's really
what I'm saying is if I come in, you have all your branch, whatever. I'm just saying, not the guinea part. I'm gonna not working with a branch. What I'm saying is, if you don't start attract the young people or the people that people can say they got integrity, they can trust them, they can see a track record, and you bring in faces that people cannot see, cannot identify with in some sense, or you bring in back some of your 16 members, you're gonna cripple yourself for a long time because you need.
I think though that you've sent for some resources.
Thank you so much.
Some critical resources.
Good evening.
The talent that the Democratic Labour Party has is not come to the fore.
But Peter, I mean honestly, do you share that perspective that they need? Again, a young person that is going to be very skeptical to join the party. It's not that we don't want to, but again, you're banking on the fact that this is a party that has crippled Barbados to a large degree. And if you're going to use back your member, I personally will go on here by saying, let's say decide to join the DLP as a running candidate, and I see any of the 16 are running, I came out, so I will not join a party.
You can't say so. I will not join a party with any of your 16 members. I'm sorry. I will wait. Peter, I will wait for the next election to all of them probably the young are aged up and they come in. But I personally will not be on stage with any of your 16, including this 31 member that just came.
But he was on the ticket. He's one that needs to get involved quickly.
Correct.
But this is the point I made earlier, right? It is about service of the party, ain't necessarily about
your party.
Hold on, it is not necessarily about the 16 members or what's not. When you come into the Democratic Labour Party, ain't that you only come in to run in the seat.
True.
So that's where the problem is coming. You come to the party, you serve, you work, you do what you have to do, what's not. Right?
But am I taking away from that, Keith? I was just saying is I'm not going to let this 16 cripple me.
I agree, but
I can't afford for it.
I know came into the debate, so good evening.
You were watching on, you saw it.
Yeah, I was watching.
There was a DLP before.
Right, but the DLP before you're 16 was a DLP that I voted for.
That's right.
Twice. Because I saw something in it before. But this DLP has crippled the country.
You mean the last DLP? The last DLP.
Victimization, holding people to ransom, all sort of stuff. What I'm just saying to you is that if Imar Zafri was to get a run on the DLP ticket, I didn't see any of those. I know that the public associating me with them, my career is dead. So I will not jump on any bandwagon on any stage with any of them.
I want to make a comment. The thing about it, but good evening to everybody. Sorry to be so late. I had a...
What you smell? You drinking rum and go?
Well, we had the launch of the Barbados Port Festival. So,
what was the
yeah, the Barbados Port Festival. November 2nd.
A whole festival of pork.
Yes, please. But there'll be other offerings too, not just only pork.
They got veggie pork? Or?
but there'll be fish as well. There's some of the vendors that provide fish and chicken and so on. But the main focus is on pork. But this year, according to Chinese calendar, this year is the year of the pig. That's right, it's the year of the pig. And you know, they say that food tourism is growing. So, you know, a lot of festivals.
We know my aversion to the pig, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the year of the pig for us was last year, turkey nil.
I saw it stand up. But anyhow, the reality of it is this.
Welcome, Corey Lane.
Yeah, hey, Corey. The reality of the situation is this. The party has a process where we have our own candidate selection, flawed as it may be. We have a candidate selection process, and it goes through the branch, then the general council, the executive council.
Wait,
that's how it goes.
You're saying that it's flawed?
I'm saying they have some challenges. It may, to some people, it may have some challenges.
Because earlier, Irene Sandifer had mentioned to us that there were changes and
changes are coming. Yes, with this new
administration. She said it changed August 2019. So therefore, you're saying at this given time it's still flawed.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that before it was, but now with the new executive that she's part of, and myself, we are trying to make it more democratic. The whole process is supposed to be more democratic.
That's welcome to hear.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But the thing about it is that it's still the will of the people. Although we may not want the 16 that ran before to be a part of this new offering that the DLP has to offer.
Do you want to say that?
I would say that it's time for change. I would say that emphatically.
Exclusively or inclusively with them?
Simon, let me help you a bit, and I would say this. Simon was still my student years ago.
That's right.
Of whom I am proud.
Thank you.
Notwithstanding the political diversion. I think that there are a lot of good things that you can say about not having it. One of them is that it's a distraction. The moment that you occupy your platform with too many characters from the previous administration, it becomes a distraction, and it represents political baggage. So regardless of whether or not you say you like the guys, you want them to come back, I think that the DLP will at some level have to appreciate it if it wants to have a conversation with the people of Barbados, free of having to hear about the past.
True.
The best thing to do is to have fresh faces that don't have that baggage. And the reality is that any of them 16 have baggage that you could well do without. So you travel a little later, maybe a carry-on, a trolley bag, another 20 pound.
My whole thing is this, what we want the public to understand too is that we're trying to form a new DLP. Same philosophy, same principles, but a new slate of candidates, a new direction.
Can it be with that's what I'm saying is you can't be in one breath saying you're trying to do a new party, you're trying to have a new slate, but yet you're bringing back 8 or 10 of the previous ones that the people of Barbados don't want.
We're not bringing them back, but they're members.
But what I'm just saying, Peter, is that what I'm just saying.
They're 8, Simon?
No, what I can say is that there are still members. You know, every branch you got caretakers, and you have members. They're still members of the Democratic Party.
They're not disputing that, or they coming back.
We can't. No, at this point, unless those candidates, former and the present ones, want to actually wreck the party and express their interest. We don't know for sure who may express their interest to come back. And even if you express an interest to run again, it doesn't mean necessarily that you will be selected.
You mentioned about caretakers, right? And I would figure that a caretaker will be alive and living. Why do you have dead caretakers?
Well, just let me bring in Umar question, and then you can bring in.
Hold
on. Let me go to that, and then go to Umar Dyer is saying, I strongly believe it's not the DLP.
It was the leader who lacked leadership skills, which brought down the rest of the team. I'm sure if Mr. Thompson was alive, the party wouldn't be here where it is today.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Alright, I just want to go back to when Peter, in the beginning, when you said that if the former Prime Minister, Mr. Stewart, had called the elections by November, that your polling had predicted that the Democratic Party would have won around 6 seats. Right? And you said by February, it was down to 4, and after that, everything was going through the door. Now, yes, the Democratic Party went on to lose the election. Very convincing.
Spectacular.
Well, spectacular. But also with the lowest voter turnout in Barbados, even though you said yesterday in the program that 1%, right? Yes. Now, the question I want to ask to you, the first question I want to ask is this. Would you be willing to divulge here any of the 6 who possibly could have won back their seats if the election was called in November?
I told you. I thought I said it earlier.
No, you didn't.
Tell me about it. For my knowledge.
No, but we said Sinclair, Circle
Lashes.
Lashes, St. John was.
Bob Lashes, you think we'll get back in?
No, Stephen wasn't. Stephen was gone.
But Michael.
It was Michael. That was still
That's
there.
right, St. Clair.
Essex was shaky, but it's possible that he could have held on because St. Philip is strong. St. Clair would definitely have been one. I think Frendel Stewart was in the
you did say
column, right, in September.
So, St. John?
Yeah, St. John, for sure. St. John was there.
What about Don Innes?
Donald would have been in that in September. He would have been in it, but he also was gone by February. But he was gone earlier because remember his seat was marginal.
Yeah,
marginal.
So
probably had his British perception that Donald would have been one.
Because they felt that Donald would inherit the kingdom because he was the one that everyone said he can inherit the kingdom.
His branch came out and said that if he's cleared of any,
they would take
him back. Now, how does that play now when you keep more and so when they're now talking about this democratic process when the branch now who elects
just the branch.
The candidate inside.
That's just the branch.
You know the thing with Donville's constituency, they're saying that people got to understand. Donville represented a very middle class.
That's right.
That whole area, Wanstead, husbands, all those people. A lot of those people were hit pretty hard by this recession.
Yes.
And my sense is that in terms of the polling, we picked up that they were ready to jettison Donville because they saw Donville as the face of a lot of
problem.
And he himself said, that as he walked around in the constituency, it became harder and harder because it's a constituency where you gotta go. You can't go and buy drinks in a rum shop. You gotta go to people's houses and living room. And as soon as you get in the door, they cuss in.
Yeah.
And you gotta deal with that, and then you go to the next house, and so you have Gainesville, but you also have those other areas, Claremont, and it's hard going when you are part of a government that's responsible for that. So Donville would have been shaky politically.
But what I
whether he can come back, how you doing?
Viewers,
come back from where he stays or from jail, which we mean.
Come on, good.
The money, man, Lord.
Yes, I just want to thank the entire panel though for this great promotion in DLP for the last hours. This is good marketing, so this is how I know that DLP will be back.
But it's funny enough that you need the debrief to market the DLP.
And I read this complaining that we are all 39 minutes about you, but yet you are here now saying you think.
She was not complaining, she just wanted to know what.
Why? But why I want to jump in? No, I'm here. I can take the lashes. That's fine. Peter, the reason why I'm here, the reason why I drove up here at Brick Street. No, I didn't go through the red light. Sorry, but I made sure I was here. I drove fast to get here.
One question to ask.
Yeah.
What's that?
What do you think the Democratic Labour Party needs to do?
You should be here.
No, actually I should be here.
No,
but maybe your concise version.
I've been saying it from the beginning that I think the DLP's their mission number one is to rebuild the image of the party.
The image.
The image of it. Your image is number one, and number two is you gotta explain to people why what happened.
Why?
And then if you're gonna roll the two up together, you can explain to them why what happened.
People have been asking us to make an apology, and different people would have said sorry.
And then Reverend
Jura has said sorry. My president, Vernon Priest, said sorry, or she apologized that we let down.
Stephen Lashley apologized. And Bobby turned it back around.
How many more apologies?
Yeah, but the problem is
say, you know what?
He didn't apologize election night.
He said he blamed for the loss.
He said I take the blame for the loss. Right. But then Frendel Stewart comes back in an interview last annual conference and says that there's
It should
no
be valid
statute of
issue.
limitations on life.
Mm.
So
Oh, yeah,
basically, what he's basically saying is that people are now coming around to the conclusion that they were lied to.
Right, why you want,
No,
why
man,
you
we don't want
to get-
that.
why you want
No, and
to
I'm
get-
saying that if you are sorry genuinely, you have acknowledged that you made a mistake, then you can't coming back. You can't be coming back to me with this foolishness telling me about people didn't understand things and whatnot. And then Bobby Morris has been
A nuisance.
a nuisance to
A
your
nuisance.
cause in terms of saying to the people of Barbados that you're genuinely sorry. And you know, Simon, this is an issue that I
Talk
had.
to me, man.
I remember when I worked with the PNC right in Guyana under Corbin, and I kept saying to them, there are a lot of people in Guyana that feel you guys need to apologize. Have you ever considered apologizing to the people for the mistakes that y'all made under Burnham and after? We don't have anything to apologize for. And the point I am making is that you may feel that you have nothing to apologize for, and you know what, you're going to continue fighting those battles. And I think that what people need to hear is they need to hear some level of unity, and it's not only Durant and whatnot. People need to hear from those Stewart either saying, you know what, we did foolishness, or alternatively shut up.
I disagree.
If you don't want to say that you did foolishness, then say nothing.
I disagree.
But you don't help because when you and Bobby Morris and everyone in the public domain and y'all are having these lunchtime lectures and all you're saying is that people didn't understand what we were doing.
I think
That,
So that's
that
your
to
view.
me
That's
is
your
part of it, but I think the
I know we
larger
cannot be
part,
married,
and this is the part that I think that Verla can control and yourself and whatnot, is the image of the party. I said on the radio yesterday, this isn't the first time the DLP has been in this situation.
Yeah, that's right. We had
The DLP was in this situation in the 2062.
2062. That's right.
And in those days, I remember the Thompson and also the Young Democrats and whatnot. The Young Democrats came to a situation where they used to have putting sauce lines on a Saturday. Right?
That's right.
You get some sauce. In those days, I was a little more comfortable with sauce. And you go by somebody's house and eat. And the lines were good in terms of building a community, camaraderie. You move from there and then you start to deal with the politics. I feel the DLP needs to get back to that and start to build the institution back up from the
We're
ground.
trying to do that with the Saturday farmers market and putting the sauce lines. But we got a long way to
You
go.
got to touch your
Y'all
people.
still
That's
with
you.
the sauce.
You got to touch your people.
what I think though that is important for this new DLP
Go ahead,
for
keep
Verla
Are you a
to
new
do
DLP yet?
is the focus on how they're going to contribute to Barbados in the next election.
Correct.
So I would like them to start talking about how
Policy.
policy.
But who's talking about
just
policy?
hold on.
But who's talking about
Just hold on.
He get to it. He get to it.
I know what they're looking at in terms of youth, what they're looking at in terms of health,
Tourism.
what they're looking at in terms of new that could actually bring something to the consciousness of Barbadians. And I think to a lot of the issues that are animosity that the public is holding is towards those fellas.
That's
Right?
it.
So
That's it.
if this new DLP is to go forward, this is where we are going to be, and this is where we need to be.
True.
Have the conversation with them, fellas.
Mm-hmm.
The only time that you should hold the institution of the DLP to ransom is if these fellas come back and they are announced as candidates. Right? That's where you could start to hammer the DLP and say, well, you are learning.
You know, everybody saying people.
As of now, the DLP showed that they are about transformation.
True.
And
But
that's it.
my argument is
So they're
my
saying
argument is that you keep saying that this is a new DLP. There's no new DLP
But we
because there's only one person out there that is speaking towards who is going to speak on your finance, who's going to speak on you, who's going to, because I'm just saying you don't have any candidates.
Not chosen candidates yet.
I'm speaking as a public person. You don't have any candidates. I didn't care what the process you're doing on the inside. I don't know about it. You don't have any candidates. Anybody that speaks on issues right now is either your president or those who decide to jut them out there.
Yeah.
So what I'm just saying, you don't have people out there to say that you have a new party, because if tomorrow comes, Ms. DeBrief, not the election, Ms. DeBrief announced her candidates. But in that slate of candidates is 10 of the old. That's not a new party.
Eight.
That's it. It's not a new. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that a new party?
No.
Simon, to me,
I've been speaking at Andrew Ward.
Ward's been speaking, and also Ryan Walters.
You mentioned about this new
None of your opposition as candidate. You're speaking
Not
because
yet.
you're speaking because you have been granted a platform to speak on. Or every leader has an event going on, and she just say, "Come talk, can't talk. You're not speaking. Remember too that what you have to focus on is not only just speaking on national issues, but also speaking towards fixing the consistency.
True.
Which is going to put you there to speak on national issues when you get into parliament. So something has to get.
But that's in terms of, you mentioned about this new DLP. And for me, looking from the outside, this is what I see the new DLP that I'm seeing right now. I'm seeing Dennis Lowe. Only recently.
Popping back up.
And he had a meeting that it could not be viewed on TV, it could not be published. Because of whatever nonsense he
over the office.
We also have Kimar Short here only a couple weeks ago was on air with Minister Ben, and he looked down on him as being a young man or whatever. We also have videos being shared on Facebook, where within a new party I'm seeing very dark videos. I can hardly see Kimar's yeah. So that's what you're saying. The party is because these are all new parties. This is what the new party is. This is what I'm seeing. And that is where you're going forward with. I think you can actually stay where you are right now.
No, I can't agree with that. I can't agree with that.
Dark video on Facebook.
You don't see that.
No, but listen,
we don't see them. We don't see them. Here we have the debrief. And you know, we invested in and having our cameras, having our lights, whatever. We have a party with millionaires. We have a party that is allegedly taking some cash.
I don't know millionaires we have.
Yes, you don't know.
I don't know millionaires.
So we have
allegedly. I don't know millionaires.
We investing back in the party. Where is this?
The money. I know where you're going. The money. I know where you're going with your conversation, and that's fine. But let me hear you. Let me hear Jermaine.
So the money. Your assessment is that, and because I'm hearing continuously from the panel here and from a lot of BLP people, not necessarily DLP people.
You shouldn't be hearing DLP people.
Listen, leave him. He's objective.
I listen to everyone.
Go ahead. He's objective.
Right?
Come on.
All I'm hearing from BLP people, and well, Peter, I won't characterize you as being.
He's a DLP person.
Leave him alone. He's apolitical. He's my lecturer. Leave him alone. He's apolitical.
Peter is known to be very apolitical.
Very apolitical. That's right.
And what I respect.
Not for the comments.
Although he got shiny the bees, but that's
no, hold on. What I respect about Peter is that Peter takes his licks from both sides.
From all sides.
Because I can say that in 2007, there were BLP people who were cursing you.
That's right.
And in 2013, there were DLP people who were cursing you. Right? Even if you're smart.
Yeah, bring your point, though.
Wait, hold on. Let me get
your point.
Right? What I'm asking, right? Is it, can we really sit here and believe that, yes, I can understand if you said 8 people from the last administration coming back is too much. It would more or less leave a stink. But you cannot really expect the public of Barbados to believe that no one at all from the last administration has any form of political goodwill in Barbados, that if they came back and said, hey, I'm interested in representing you again in Parliament. And remember, you are not elected to be a minister, you're elected to be a member of Parliament.
That's
so
right.
First, they have to go back to the people who
That's
they would
right.
have represented previously.
That's right.
And if those people say, hey, you did good for me in the past, and possibly I would consider voting for you again, can we sit down here on a national level and decide that people in the community could not decide
that they
we
want Michael
do not want back, say, Michael Ashley or EPCM per singular?
True.
Because, I mean, you said in your own assessment that in November, 6 of these guys had a legitimate chance of winning back.
They see, that's
right?
But because of what?
No, but they had a legit, regardless of because of what, they had a legitimate chance.
Whatever.
And it is well known in Barbados that the Democratic Labour Party lost that election so convincingly because of a leadership problem.
Leadership, yeah.
Right? It wasn't necessarily that all the candidates were on the party. But it was
and now we have a flip. I know we have a flip on that now because we have a strong leader, or the appearance of a strong leader in Myanmar.
Why will not join you in that?
You feel that the guys are the performing. But we're talking about the dance.
Tell me that's right.
Well, I regardless just want to big up Beckford for sounding very rational and reasonable.
He's a good guy. Yes, Irene. He's a good guy. You see, sure God.
Listen, the reality of the situation is that, as I said earlier, I question the judgment of people who found that they were serving under Frondel Stewart. I had this conversation with the same Irene Sanford Garner, who defended Frondel Stewart at the time, and let me say that to her credit. But the reality is that I question when people came to me and said, I am planning to run in this election. I'm saying you are running in this election. Because I don't think the day could ever come that I would find myself mounting a platform in support of a government that is led by Fernando Stewart. Because what I'm basically saying to the people of Barbados, in 2013, all of those people were saying to the people of Barbados that if things work out and we win this election, that Fernando Stewart is going to be Prime Minister again. You know the man's popularity, you know the man's weaknesses, you know the fact that he has taken you to the point where you are. There were public opinion polls that showed that he was the most unpopular leader since Cadre started tracking that stuff in 1990.
But in 2013, his popularity wasn't around.
His popularity was bad too. But I'm saying that the point is you get past. No, but they were the same. They had the same level of popularity.
At one point.
But then the same.
That's going into the third term. That's going into the second term, third term.
Those two polls that I know were so controversial, they were basically separating leadership by 2 or 3 percentage points, which is nothing.
Because I remember I read that.
Right? So the point I'm making is that you know that Fernando Stewart has all of these weaknesses, but yes, if you're going to foist him on the people of Barbados, I question your judgment.
Okay.
So for you to say after that, I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to ask you to be my representative. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do for me, explain the logic that possessed you to say that you wanted Fernando Stewart to lead me in preference to me and Motley.
Peter, let me ask you a question. Do you think, in all honesty, with Fernando Stewart being the political leader of the party at that time, right? Do you think that there would have been a sabotage to remove him as Prime Minister
It's not
right
possible.
after that?
It's not possible. I spoke to people who were on the DLP's ticket in 2013
What
who
about that?
assured me,
Exactly.
I can't call any of them, who
Lord.
assured me that if the Democratic Labour Party won that 2013 election, Fernando Stewart would not be Prime Minister again. The 2013 election was won, and Fernando Stewart was
What about the
Prime Minister.
11 that rose up?
The 11
They went
was
back
on,
down.
they went back
They
down.
went back down.
Yeah.
But guys, sorry,
I think
I don't
all
mean to
across
cut.
this region, I have never found a situation in which a person leads a party into the election
That is
and then has not
possible.
become Prime Minister.
True.
I think they had one in the Bahamas, no, in Bermuda. Yeah, in Bermuda, where a lady, she waited around a water and somebody else went to the Governor General.
So could that have happened with again?
But Kimar, sorry.
It's not something that will happen normally under normal circumstances.
But Mr. Stewart, Kimar Stewart.
That's that story.
Sorry, Safri, Mr. Safri.
I missed that.
What I'm saying to you now is that the Democratic Labour Party has understood where it went wrong. I believe.
So.
No. I believe.
I don't-
The Democratic Labour Party.
I don't think the DLP has.
Well, for my one part, I understand where you would have went wrong. But what we're talking about, the reason why I was so excited to be here is to talk about
The way forward.
the way forward. The way forward is important because at the end of the day, the political pendulum swings between B and D. One thing I learned is that third parties don't really. And you had a third party with the likes of quality man like Richie Haynes, and they still were not able to make them hurt. That's the honest truth.
You saw the Eurobelt thought in politics.
Yes, my youth, sir. So what I'm saying to you now is that the way forward for the Democratic Labour Party, therefore, would be total rebranding of the party, as well as
Wash. Red wash.
we already get red wash. We already went to the Red Sea.
I mean,
We were not able to part the Red Sea. We understand that, but what we have to do, one of the things I think that's very important for the Democratic Labour Party, is to rebuild the public's trust in the institution.
I agree.
And I think that, I know it may not be the most popular, but I do think that having Verla de Pisa at this point is important to steady the ship and to ensure that the party can begin to heal and also rebuild itself.
Before you came, that I am in full agreement with that argument.
Okay,
I
good.
think that she's well placed to steady the ship.
To steady the ship.
If you're gonna build legitimacy, and I think that's what the DLP. I mean, I agree with you with the rebrand. You need to build legitimacy. If you're gonna build legitimacy, you have to start with this feeling that it is viable. And the lack of viability has a lot to do with the fact that the institutional structure doesn't appear to be there. So I feel that the nomination of candidates, the identification of candidates,
It's important.
and the process by which you identify those candidates, making it as broad-based and democratic as possible. We were talking about St. Michael West. If you had a nomination now, you two guys face off in St. John, and each of y'all register 400 people, and y'all bring together 1,000 people in St. John to DL.
That's all supporters.
You fill a school. I think that would be amazing. And in terms of it gives the party a bump. Now, my feeling is that you have 30 opportunities to have that kind of bump. And it would be good for the Democratic Labour Party to start there. So my thing is, after 2 years, you have not started filling constituencies yet. I'm sorry, I am not ashamed to say this, but I think that Verda has to ensure that her political home drums beat loudest. So my feeling is that she gotta lock down herself in a safe seat. And again, I would say she needs to go to St. John, she needs to go to St. Philip North. I think those are the two places where she is safest. Forget about St. Lucie. In my opinion, St. Lucie is dead now for the Barbados Democratic Labour Party for a while. St. Lucie has never really been shining bright since Evelyn Graves.
So we have marginal wins up there, that's what you're saying.
Marginal wins, and you are having diminishing returns under Kelly, and I think it has come to a point now where it has been seeded, and I don't feel that it going back there again. I did a statistical analysis of St. Lucie, and St. Lucie basically started to dip under Evelyn Graves, and then after it became marginal. But you see, because St. Lucie, everybody assumes that St. Lucie is Arabara. Right? Right. It used to be Arabara, but all the people dead.
Yeah, but long time.
And most of the young people that are in St. Lucie leaving. So the constituency is getting smaller, and
the population is not there to hold it. So
they're moving in St. Lucie, so I just want you.
We use the Asian population.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's my kind of idea in terms of what needs to happen. I feel she needs
so
to
candidate select, we need to have the
and then
candidate
selection. Where is he looking to go?
I was looking at St. Philip North, I was St. Philip Man. So we will see, but
there's always the South.
There's always South too. That's right.
There's always the South, like by John King.
Yeah.
I really need to get people like Keymark
Stewart, of course.
Stewart, you got me messed up.
Stewart, he going in St. Michael Northeast.
He hasn't declared that.
No, he is.
By looking at it.
So you're going to St. Michael Northeast?
You never declared anything.
Yes. You're not saying that yet. But what I'm saying though is that
it was always started declared on.
But for me though, it is
rebuilding.
Yes, please.
It's rebuilding. You're rebuilding. And when you're rebuilding, I'm still seeing Dennis Lowe. I'm still seeing Mr. Benden. He's not my good friend. Mark Stewart.
Fair enough. But they are all listen. Mr. Lowe and Mr. Ben are all card-carrying members of the Democratic Party.
Is Ben never said he's running?
Right.
The only card
but
when
you have a guy like him disrespecting a young man on national TV.
Mr. Lowe,
Mr. Lowe, you know what it is with politics. The taste of power is something that you when you taste it, you want it again. But remember that. But remember too that behind these men that would have expressed their interest, well, Mr. Lowe, for example, there would be a lot of people saying, "Man, we want you, Lowe." Probably where he drives through in this constituency, there's somebody saying, "Man, Lowe, come back. I'm happy as Abrams. I'm happy. I want Lowe come back." So that's one aspect. That is one aspect.
Call him by 450 here would be a crap.
But regardless.
What happens if one of those guys come next election in Venezuela? I mean, it's just a possibility.
There's a possibility.
If they come next election,
if they come.
No, but I'm
I would love this. I would love Lowe to come back as a candidate.
No,
I want people like Corey to eat them in.
So when I talk about baggage,
that's baggage that we don't need.
Saying that is baggage.
But I'm glad that you're objective and you said that.
This is something that I've learned from working in different election campaigns, right? Whilst we are all, and Peter Wickham here would know this fully, whilst we are all political spectators here, running a campaign is actually a machinery.
That's right.
Right? And believe it or not, there have been people that I heard people outside saying, "Man, he can never win, he can never this, he can never that." And those people came and stunned people. And one season.
But we're not disputing that. My thing is, Jermaine, I just find it amusing that I keep hearing Simon and I keep hearing Keymark talk about the fact that this is a new party.
We're trying to get
in my mind, it is not. You can't say you're a new party with the same old.
But you can't say about the Barbados Labour Party. You can't say
I'm
about
not
Barbados
saying,
Labour
I'm not
Party.
saying, well, forget Barbados Labour Party.
But you can't say that.
Let me
You can't
get
say
my
Barbados
point.
Labour Party.
Hold on. Let me get my point. I'm just saying this. You can't walk about saying that you got new shoes when them is on old chair, shoes book there, and you telling me them new, they no come to battle. You ain't an idiot. So you can't walk about saying that you have a new party.
I get what you're saying.
When somebody go, and I agree with Peter. And I said it already and I say it again. Any of those 16 members that come, if I was to run in the day, I stick ahead, those 16, right? Any of those 16 is also your favorite. And you may not see it now. Any of those 16 that come is the piece of failure. Because it's going to contradict everything she's been saying, that you're trying to change, you're trying to rebrand, you're trying to bring new. But yet, somewhere to the crap.
But
these people come back.
But the reality, I mean,
you recognize that you can't.
Let me hear. Sorry.
For all, is it to start to identify candidates?
Or candidates already. I think that
if you identify candidates and you see personalities that like Simon and Kimar coming up, and then it's difficult to say that the party is a party of whole. And that's the reason why I keep saying that it is incumbent upon you guys to start putting candidates in the field, because that's the only way you will shift the conversation. Because the reason that Dennis Lowe can talk about the fact that he's coming back as a candidate,
but what Ryan Waters did was excellent.
Yeah, Ryan Waters
even though he's not the duly elected member for the party, but what Miss Vernon DePisa said here on the show,
yes,
that he strategically placed himself so it will be harder now
not to choose him.
Correct. Because he cemented himself, and as I say again, Kimar Store and Simon has nothing to lose by putting them head above water. The moment that Dennis Lowe or Dennis whoever or any of them other members put their head against water, everything will start. Because you see what Peter said just now? He got videos to run. You think he's the only boy that got videos to run?
True.
You start the people in the Democratic Labour Party before it start. You might probably even give your party a chance to get him one seat.
Okay.
What is it?
Irene is here saying,
yes,
Jeremy, can someone get a thermometer and check that first temperature? He catching the bug. He's so reasonable tonight. Corey is saying, actually let all 30 come back.
No, Corey said not one. He had
all 31. All 31.
Yeah,
no. You can't forget candidate.
I am not a candidate. I was not a candidate. I spoke.
Nevertheless, go right.
Yeah, that's just good.
I like to hear the tenacity from you. I like to hear the tenacity from you. Right?
This is my lecture here, boy.
And in particularly, the fact that you know so much for the DLP. Why you don't come and put down your name and come and serve and help out?
Yeah.
Instead of giving so much lip service on the side.
He's not a politician.
Yeah. He's a social activist. That's the right term, right? You're a social activist.
I predicted Trump and all the other parties.
You're a political social
I'm going to get a politics. What you're saying. The question was answered. The question was 4 stars.
He won $1,000 and got the money too.
Okay.
What?
The question was asked stars Kimar is that if Kimar was asked to run on the DLP ticket at this time, will you accept?
With the knowledge I got that persons will be coming back, hell no.
Again, so if the 16 or whatever it comes back, will you run on the DLP ticket?
I will consider
You will consider it.
I will consider it.
But the thing about it is that there's more mobility right now. The political party right now. Right now the Barbados Labour Party is top heavy. We know that. There's a lot more mobility. It's heavy. Now the Barbados Labour Party is heavy right now.
Okay.
Because they've done this succession planning to extent. When I look at the Senate, I'm pleased. I'm seeing people, my counterparts, my age, some a little older. You're seeing Dr. Romel Springer, you're seeing Dr. Crystal Haynes, you're seeing a lot of people. You're even seeing Kay McConney. She's making good contributions.
I didn't hear you say that again.
Kay McConney, you're seeing Kay McConney too. Yes, that's the honest truth. However, as in terms of showing tenacity and rebuilding a party, for those persons who are brave and who want to serve, the Democratic Labour Party is there for you to come and to be a part of and to work.
So you're recruiting young members tonight?
I wanted to recruit some young members to the Democratic Labour Party, though, and not just young members, but professionals too, because it's always been said that the Democratic Labour Party always attracts a certain type a person.
You know what we need to know before we
You
try.
need-
If anybody wants the procedure to become the candidate.
You also need. I will say this
Go
to
ahead.
you tonight.
But that way you ready to go?
No, I'm good.
Like,
The Democratic Labour Party needs to attract some finance and economic professionals.
You did say that.
Because
Sure.
if you are to be the party of the future and to be taken seriously again, you definitely need to. It is one thing to say that you are able to take care of people's social needs, but you also must be able to manage an economy.
That's right.
And manage it successfully.
True.
To such a point that people like myself will not sit down in offices and berate you and criticize you
Yeah.
and say these people clearly in understand
I
what's going
think-
on the ground.
I think that even the timing of the election too, when I really think about it, when we call elections and so on, I looked at it and I said, Cha, it's going to be hard to win the election for a number of reasons. It appeared to the public that the Democratic Labour Party was at war with Labour and was at war with employers. The fact that you had, which was strange, you had marches and so on in Bridgetown and so on, with both Labour and Capital coming together. So I think for me, when I saw that, I said, this election, it's going to be a hard one for many reasons.
At that time, did you take your grievances to the Prime Minister?
Pardon me?
At that time, did you take your grievances?
I don't know. Hold on.
Don't answer that thing.
Hold on.
Don't answer that.
The question you should
No,
ask
but
is,
no.
if you had grievances, no, can you take them to the Prime Minister?
Me?
Ah.
Yes, I can.
Or you will call her.
Yes, I can.
I cannot.
But my whole thing is this. My whole thing is this. We knew the austerity measures that had to be taken. We understood and
But you're not answering my question.
but listen to what I'm
I
saying.
asked
The
if
reality-
you did take your grievances to the Prime Minister, yes or no? Simple.
I expressed
You're a man.
concerns. I
You answer
expressed-
me if you're a woman.
I'm not a woman.
Good, answer me yes or no.
But what kind of
Question is
gender thing you
You
call it?
probably like to prolong things and don't
I'm
say
not
yes
going
or
on,
no.
man. But I try to set context. I try to do, but the man, I try to set the man is trying to set context. I try to set context.
Go
The
ahead.
reality of it is that the Democratic Labour Party, to their credit, they had to manage some serious economic recessionary times. That's the honest truth, and we all accept that. And we got to accept that. We have to accept that when the Democratic Labour Party was in office, the price of a barrel of oil was much more expensive than what it was now. Yes or no? The fact that foreign direct investment was also
I'm
more.
saying you're taking yourself down a path that is
Fair
not
enough.
necessary
Fair
because
enough.
the public has already passed judgment on that.
So that was asking me a question.
So the question is, were the lines of communication available that you could have raised concerns about
Yeah.
the management of the campaign?
Well-
After the first meeting.
Yes, after the first meeting,
That
yes.
was a meeting.
We
That was a mishap.
Savage, yeah.
Yes, the thing about the strategy
And
was
should never
done,
be being on that platform.
but
So
being on the
the
platform.
speakers that night.
Thank you,
Yeah, probably the
thank you.
It went
Thank
downhill.
you.
It went downhill.
Thank you.
Simon was pretty the only person that really
Thank
stood
you.
up and made a.
A
It was proven,
reasonable,
man.
of course,
Yeah, but
a
the thing is
reasonable
about
contribution.
the fact I went to the meeting, and the fact that I saw him speaking on that
You the
platform,
vex.
but I don't want to hear her lash.
Well, you made her lash.
It's only now you know that I
watched
should
it.
tell
I
him
watched
that-
it.
Which one? The one that
I
was
Stadium, National Stadium.
Yeah.
National
No, like
Stadium.
the black was in disgust of that. I will go on record saying black.
No, let's not attack anybody. Let me get back on.
No.
That's 2018. We're in 2019.
No.
That was 2018.
Black
Come
was
on.
a disgust
Don't say that about Mr.
on that.
No, you guys are Mr.
about
Blackhead.
a
No.
woman. I will not say opposition. The way he spoke about a female made me want to take my phone up and apologize to all the women that ever cursed.
But listen.
He was a disgrace.
I cannot.
He was another
No,
disgrace.
guys, listen to the people. Let me not go to that road. That was 2018.
I cannot.
That was
allow
2018.
you all, and I
No,
cannot.
only last
And that's my still feeling
No.
2020.
I cannot
No.
believe that you all are sitting here harping on the name of Democratic Labour Party.
In
I know
2018.
this is a great one, but yes,
Man, give you free advertising.
but in reality, right, there are many issues right now
Many issues.
Right.
that you can speak about.
Yeah, garbage collection or the lack thereof.
No, you can't watch it in narrative.
No, we got to change the narrative. We got to change the narrative because on the platform, we were told that we can solve everything.
Peter, it's unfortunate,
Things
right?
get
It's
solved.
unfortunate.
Well,
That is about the fourth show
Yes.
that I keep hearing someone talk about garbage. Everyone else I would like to work for these guys. They should be perfect. Because all he speaks about is garbage.
Because it's affecting people.
It reminds
It affects
me of
people.
the election when they were talking speaking about
Crime and violence.
And he still get voted. What I'm saying is this. Listen to what I'm saying.
Hold on.
No, he lost that.
I just said, no,
Segment started to make a
Let
point.
me
Yes,
add, I want to add a point
And
here.
he was given a long run up, and I was wanting to hear what he would have come to eventually.
With regards to what? Because I'm trying to navigate.
The question was,
Mhm.
F.
Lines of communication after the first meeting. It was expressed within the party that, you know what, we got to change the tone, we got to change the narrative. Because clearly, attacking the leader of the opposition then was not working. Alright? But, you know, it didn't work. It didn't work.
But when they
It
didn't
did not
realize
work.
it after they got beat or before, because they were still using it. They said that. I remember
There
hearing
were
the
issues.
member said this election is about the leader. It wasn't about. That's what they called the election. They called it about a leader. And when y'all went down to when y'all went to the stadium and did what y'all did, I think it cemented in a lot of people's mind that this was a party of disgust.
But not only that, too, it would have offended people from different groups.
But
At the end of it, let's be real now. Barbados is a more metropolitan, almost very diverse society, and we have different groups represented in Barbados, whether we like it or not. And we want to be. And for me, my political philosophy clearly is one of inclusion. We have to include all members of society, LGBTQ. Everyone has a contribution to make in this society, and it's important we understand that. So we don't ever want a situation where people feel as if they're being attacked by a political party. Because my whole thing is that we attack issues, but not individuals. And I think, and that's where things went. That is where it went downhill. We accept that. We accept that, but we have to move on.
You accept that.
I accept that. We accept.
Because half of them accept what they do.
We accept that.
Black should have been made to do a public apology for that.
I can't say that about me.
No, I don't care who he is and I don't care who vexed. He should have made to do a public apology for that disgusting piece of thought that he did. It was not political. It was that.
It was
theater. It was not
theater.
politics. It was
It was
not good
theater.
anything. And you can't sit down there and say, oh, we shouldn't let. We got this because things like these is up and rape Barbadians to say, you know what? He better not roll his tail back in politics again.
I understand. Safri, we accept that.
You accept
but
that.
No, we accept that, but now we have to move forward.
But you realize
Because-
how popular these guys are.
But don't bring
16 months later,
People still talking about
we are still
talking
here
about them.
debating.
German, is
about
it popular? Is it people hurt because of the things? Again, you can't really have popularity.
But you know, Simon, if you
Yes,
guys
please.
want to change the conversation, as I said, you need to have a conversation about what's good news within the Democratic Labour Party.
Exactly.
I think.
I go back to this point about choosing candidates.
Yeah.
You can create good news within the Democratic Labour Party, but what do? You have a session, you attack the government, and you get the people who support the Barbados Labour Party's backs up. And then they start to cuss you, and you go back to the same old narrative all the time about what you guys did wrong or what they're doing right and whatnot.
True.
So my thing is, if you want to change the narrative to what is good news about the Democratic Labour Party, the DLP needs to start doing something.
And we are.
So if it is that y'all back to the putting the South thing on Saturdays, maybe that is a start.
Yes,
But
Really young Democrats. All of
Young
those are.
Democrats.
So
And
if
we
someone
revitalize
serious
it.
business has to go on in there. What?
Yeah.
Young Democrats is one of
I have an AGM. We got an AGM.
You have an AGM?
Simon, Crystal is telling you, Simon, the only DLP person I ever heard publicly accept that the party behaved poorly is you. I respect you for that, but I've heard it from no one else.
I heard Berla de Pisa say the same.
I've heard it too.
I
Thank
heard
you,
Berla
Crystal,
de
but
Pisa say that she thought
and
the
Stephen
campaign.
and Ashley too.
Let
Campaign, yeah, enough lot to be.
Stephen said it.
Yeah.
Greg Hewitt said it.
Greg Hewitt
you
too.
know. So there were a few people that said it. The problem is that the people that need to say it.
Didn't say it.
Correct. So that's what I'm saying. That
But
you have
that's the
exactly
same thing,
and those
but-
apologizing.
No, that's the thing. No, that's the thing. No, Kimar. That's the thing, Kimar, because that's the same thing that my President Berta would have said when she was here. She would have already given her apologies and so on, but people are saying that they want to hear from Stuart, they want to hear from Chris. That's not really probable right now.
No.
Those guys-
the
those guys-
arrogance of the people within your party do not see themselves.
Have y'all invited Chris here?
No, we have a big party.
Kimar have you?
Kimar have you? Kimar, would you?
I don't
invite
know
Chris?
his number.
Simon is figuring out
Yeah, what the Prime
All right,
Minister
I
said.
can do that.
Do not make people like myself come around and feel that we could
I
be
mean,
the grace of the party.
I would love
hear it.
Frandel to come and sit here.
so we can hear his
Wait,
perspective.
stop to do what?
To talk.
I would love to see.
He's a former prime minister. Give him respect. Give him respect.
Yes, but I just see real fast.
Why?
No,
No.
One of the points.
I would
One of the
agree.
points
You can't
I say-
I'm not being
One of
biased.
the
Yes,
points
you
I
are.
used to make when I was on the radio under the last administration. If an industrial walked into Starcom a Tuesday when I was on the radio, I sat down opposite me and started a conversation, or better yet, call on the telephone like anybody else,
People love it.
right? That would have changed people's perception.
Yes.
since
They want
so
to
long.
hear you.
I would have entertained. I would have entertained him.
The problem is that he felt that there was a virtue in being non-communicative.
Yes, silence is not condemnation.
Right, and my feeling is that if at this stage in the game he came to a forum like this and he sat down with some young people and he started to talk,
Wonderful.
everybody was civil. But this
not gonna talk every sense. It's not gonna talk.
No, we will respect.
But he
the
said
comment on
one
the show.
point I've always
Give him
heard
that.
is that people say, you know what, that is not in his DNA and we have to respect that.
Fair enough.
So my thing is that if that's not his DNA, we gotta
Fair
respect
enough.
that.
But we have
Fair
these
enough.
wonderful DLP people that can reach out to some of these DLP and to help bring Bradley party.
Yeah, but at the same time too, Kimar, if they come on the program, you know.
Don't tell me that
the
they
man-
get the licks.
No, I'm not saying they get the licks, but we will try to
That's
be
the
as
difference.
yes.
They will get the level of respect
Yes.
just like we give you as DLP members and we are all
And
moderators.
yeah,
We give the
president,
leader.
yes.
We give her.
But she had herself very well.
But she had herself well.
Very well.
She was
You
not
know?
a minister in the last
But no, but I'm just saying.
Well, question here, go WhatsApp.
She was respected, and we will respect anyone that come on this show to any degree. But I'm just saying, we still need if they show themselves to us young people here, and with the viewers that we're increasing by over 50,000 views in just 10 shows and stuff
That's
like
right,
that.
that's
I think that was
It would do well.
And if you had to advertise it, trust me.
Yeah, but what we're speaking about too is also the future Democratic Labour Party, and that is why we're so happy. That's why we're so happy
Yeah, I can't
when
see
Verda. I was so happy when you invited Verda the Peas to be on the show.
I was happy when she had said it.
Yeah, and we had a pretty robust debate here. On
Right,
the
well,
program.
yes, we have a comment here and a question.
Yeah, I would love that too.
The comment here is that the female candidate sat and cheered and laughed while Low Eswit Blackett and Todd spoke distinguishedly about Morley. They too are complicit. It was a shame. Question to Peter. And do you think the Prime Minister should always be the Prime Minister of Finance?
No, I think that Barbados will get to a stage where we can let the Prime Minister not be Finance Minister. In Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica that no longer happens. And I think that Barbados is heading in that direction. The problem is that when you have to make the kind of changes that she has to make now,
She has to be.
it's difficult for the Prime Minister not to be Finance Minister because it gives full control. So hopefully we will get to the stage where she doesn't have to be. I think that will be progress in terms of democracy, but not yet.
We also spoke about, I think I didn't get everything, but we also spoke about the low hanging fruit within the current administration.
What's that?
Meaning some of the ministers that are not seen as strong as others.
You should be early.
Yeah, I know I should have been early, but that's I'm going on
We're
record.
talking about reshuffles and whatnot.
Yeah.
I said, Simon, that I am not.
Mhm.
I personally don't know that a reshuffle is necessary. I don't know what you'll be reshuffling to do. I think that people like to see that politics is a blood sport.
Mhm.
So they want to hear a man get let go.
It's a theater.
Or a
It's
woman.
theater.
They want to hear a woman get let go. But I don't know that. I don't know if it's time for that yet.
Right, and next question coming from WhatsApp.
We're gonna wrap up.
Is on
No, we were about 15
the
minutes,
scale of 1 to 10,
Yeah, 2.5.
how would you grade the BLP administration and the opposition party?
The PDP.
Me?
Yeah.
But I think I had done that grading already, and I said I gave the government a B+.
Why not A?
Hmm?
Why not A?
No government is perfect.
No, because I when I did it, I talked about the concerns I had with sewage and whatnot, and I think that all of it is assessed against
Water.
expectations,
Yeah.
and on that basis, you're looking at a B+, a high B+, or maybe even an A-. But it's difficult to get an A+ because an A+ would mean that you would have to have delivered on expectations as they were. I think
Not
that's
all of them.
really the challenge.
But that's Peter Wickham or
Right. That's Peter Wickham.
Okay,
Yeah, no, we
okay,
have a
that's
poll
perspective.
ratio.
PDP no.
The opposition is not to be graded.
No.
I
The
want to
official opposition, we could grade the Democratic Labour Party.
That's right.
That's
right.
I want to
Barbadians have no expectation of Anthony.
Okay.
I want to take a pen there for a minute.
You can read that.
And the reason being, I have seen the Barbados Labour Party in power, the Democratic Labour Party in power, and the Barbados Labour Party back in power.
That's right.
The issues remain the same. And when you look around the world, solutions have been found in other parts of the world
Mm-hmm.
for some of the simplest problems that we have in Barbados. But for some reason, our political directorate refuses to embrace the solutions that are found in some of, as you call it, more metropole cities around the world.
That's
Right? Now, I take more serious concern to this matter, given that when I started working, and I realized the amount of taxes that government takes out of my salary, and the reality is that the reality is that progressively every year, with the exception of the last two budgets from Prime Minister Marley, every year since I have been working, and this was from under Owen Arthur, right? Monies were getting less and less and less because the government was seemingly taking more and more and more, and the services being provided by government seem to be getting less and less and less, right? So this is what we would like to see happen in Barbados. Instead of our politicians continuously spitting top in mud every election cycle, as a young person, and I have a son, and I would like that when he grows up, that the problems that we have today, there's no reason why we had the garbage situation 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and we should still have it today.
True.
There's no reason why we had the situation with the water 10 years ago, and we should still have it today. And if we don't watch ourselves carefully, another government will come into power, and you will have the same transportation, water, sewage, the same finance challenges. Because even when you look at our main contributor to our economy, tourism, how can we realistically say that any minister of tourism over the last 15 or 20 years has been truly innovative in that sector and recognize where Barbados needs to go if it is to really truly capitalize on the tourism offerings here?
That's a good question.
Yeah, but I mean, you asked a lot, you said a lot in that thing, and it's hard to respond to all of it, but let me just say that the problems that we have in Barbados are not peculiar. A lot of the other Caribbean islands have the same problems, and a lot of them have more than us. So we talk about water. Water has been a huge challenge in Antigua, and it has been a continuous challenge in Antigua because their rainfall levels are lower. They don't have the underground water supply. Water is very expensive, and worse yet, water, like Barbados, is publicly owned.
Yeah.
So people don't pay the water bill, but they expect
Service.
right? But what we have in Barbados that Antigua doesn't have is that we have a privately owned electric system.
That's right.
So at least Barbados Light and Power achieves a level of efficiency, while in Antigua that also belongs to government. So people don't pay the light bills neither. Right? So I'm saying that yes, I agree with you that a lot of the problems we have are continuous, but a lot of the islands have problems that are worse in many ways that we have solved. And I think that one of the things that we have attempted to do with water is we are trying to make water as close to being private as possible. So you clean up a lot of the inefficiencies. And I do feel that progress is being made. Now you talked about tourism. One of the challenges that the Caribbean countries continue to have is money. Since agriculture ended, there was nothing other than tourism that has fit that bill. In all of the other islands, the smaller islands, except St. Vincent, they've been selling citizenship. Barbados could get into that business, and Barbados would make a fortune because the Barbados passport is far more valuable. But we will not do it.
You don't know who you're getting.
So I'm just saying that a lot of these solutions are out there, but that was essentially how the St. Kitts economy was rescued. That's how the Grenada economy was rescued, right? St. Lucia did quite a bit of it as well. Antigua, they did extremely well with the CIP. But Barbados hasn't gone on that road, so unless we are prepared to have these kinds of uncomfortable conversations about things that we want to do, then we're going to continue to struggle because it's hard in this world. There's no silver bullet.
I agree.
And the thing about it is that capital is so
but
mobile
it's
now.
that expectation precisely.
Capital is mobile. You don't have a situation where you can tell people, you know what, come and invest in Barbados, and there's so many other people that are offering just as good deals or even better. So those are some of the challenges that we face.
My last question to you would be, and something I've heard a lot of Barbadians talking about. What is your take as it relates to some of the, well, obviously you got pregnant seats in Parliament. What have been your observation as it relates to ministers' performance versus their constituency performance. Because I've heard a lot of people say that, well, the country is looking really good at rescuing the economy and the society. Well, the economy, the society suffers, like the lack of ministers not being at their constituency, not enough, and there's chatter on the ground as we listen to people about it.
But my concern is, I don't know, I think we have a lot of misperceptions regarding what an MP should do, a good MP should do. And I think the last administration created, with respect, a lot of challenges where that was concerned, because there were some of the ministers who were seen as good ministers because they were generous. Right? So you think that a good minister is somebody you can go to and that person will pay your light bill. He's a good minister, he's paying my light bill all the time. There was one of them that told me that he has paid tuition fees for students at university. Right? We cannot define representation in terms of giving people stuff. But you know what? All across the region, that is how representation is defined. It's defined as good representatives are people who give people stuff. I have a problem with that. And I think that a lot of the challenges that people are having now with their representatives is that they're not saying they want a representative to sign a passport form. They're not saying they want their representative to deal with issues in a constituency where there's debushing needed or whatnot. They want their representative to pay the water bill. And if it is that you want your representative to do those things, I think there's going to be a lot of
complaints. But haven't we created that culture?
We got uncreated.
True, I agree.
We got uncreated.
But it's not sustainable. It is not sustainable.
Question, do you know that you venture into that?
Any final questions?
How would you deal with the issue then of vote buying? Yeah.
But the vote buying is the issue still? I haven't heard anything about vote buying in 2018.
I think everybody has been.
Because a lot of people that buy the votes in 2018 last election.
My last question.
So, I honestly think it is an issue which will be. I did a lecture at community college yesterday, and people asked the same question. And they said, I think that there's less concern about it now, because next time around, I think that politicians are going to be hesitant to spend money because they realize that it's a kind of foolish bargain.
Because you spend money, they still lose.
That's not my back
Do you
have any interest in running for office?
No. I used to, but not anymore.
Okay.
What would have made you got in this interest?
I like what I do now. I think that it's better. Yeah, somebody got to do this. So.
Yeah, I think you best suit next position also.
My last question would be.
And I see all this talent around me. I want to see Simon Rice today.
I'm not talent.
My last question would be, I have a particular look I have in terms of a politician. One who speaks and articulates a particular ideology or philosophy based on how he would govern a country.
No, you talk.
Yeah, just hold on.
You hold on now. Lord, you let me share this.
I always say that any member of parliament that is elected, who has a seat, has the ability to become prime minister under any given circumstance, right? So,
do I agree?
Well, I want you to paint an outlook for me in terms of candidate selection from the D side and from the east side as it relates to quality of candidates going forward, because traditionally it's not necessarily the better man who gets the nod. It is always the hype man or the crowd favorite or who could
personality.
But you remember there's a guy called Hamilton Lashley?
Yeah. Oh yes.
And Hamila was he was B&B, so that's right. He crossed the
boy.
But Hami was, to me, Hami was a very different type of politician. I could never see Hami as a national leader. But Hami was an outstanding politician. That's right. Because he worked hard on behalf of the people.
That's right. Every Wednesday morning, he was at work.
There you go. Yeah. So my thing to you, Kiora, is that I don't think that there's anyone look. I think that Miyamaki is a good politician. I think that Hami is a good politician. But there are different kinds of politicians.
Yeah.
And I feel that there are people who will bring different skills to the table. I remember when McLean once said to me, if you guys want to be politicians, because of course he was teaching myself and Chris Sinclair and Kerry Simmons at the time. And he was saying, if you all guys want to be politicians, you all need to be good at something and make sure that when you come to the table, you got something to offer. So it's the diversity that I like. And when I was commenting on the St. Michael West election, to me it reflected that by diversity.
Chris Gibbs.
Right. And I feel like if you, as a Democratic Labour Party, when you're looking to put together your slate, it should be a diverse slate. It should have people that have grassroots skills that could go in a community and work. and people who you can see as potential leaders, because there's no reason why you have to say the party has to have Mia Motley or Hamilton Lashley. You can have both. And they have different skills, and that's the kind of diversity that I feel the DLP should be looking to build. And you know, the fact that you guys now have no candidates virtually means that you have a golden opportunity to build that diversity. Bring all kind of different people, you know, with backgrounds in NGOs, with backgrounds in international affairs, economics.
But it's attract those kind of people. That's what we have to do. Work on attracting.
You think Natalie would be a candidate?
Which Natalie is that?
You choose.
Yeah, Natalie.
But she's straightforward.
She's straightforward. Natalie speaks her mind.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she speaks her mind. So there will be this place for people like that in any organization.
There's
any position is open for them.
You want to put her in any position?
I never said that. I said that there for people like Natalie who are outspoken, they will always have a following.
You do recognize that when you made that statement, right? Majority of the people who actually vote in Barbados comes, and I'm not saying from Natalie's profession, but from her demographic.
That's right.
So you have to recognize that you cannot in one spectrum say that you want those people's votes, but in another spectrum don't want them to represent you. I would say that.
What I wanted to say.
You know what I liked about her though, and I'm sorry that I think, because I realize you guys are wrapping up. That one of the things I liked about Natalie was that I found I thought that Natalie had the tenacity, and I think that she also empowered women in a major way. Because people are always attacking women and saying use a this and use a that, and Natalie came and she said as all of that.
So what?
And I mean, it disarms you completely when you come to somebody and say, you know her. And she said, yeah, but we established that already.
We know that.
Let's move on.
True.
At least you know where you got.
I think
it was a very empowering moment. You know?
I enjoyed it. I sat with her in my office several times and I really enjoyed her. Yes, I did, man, because she wanted to work with the charity during her election and stuff. And I wanted to actually, first show, I actually wanted to bring her because I wanted to know what was Natalie way forward. You know, what is it, Natalie, what do you wish you think? No, she actually wanted to come. It's just that I never reached back out to her, but I know that there been some videos circulating and stuff that I didn't really. But I really, she's a very interesting character. Yeah, there's a very interesting character. I would love to interview her with the panel and see where she's going.
Yeah, I know I came late, but I want to say thanks for accepting the invitation to be here. For me, I'm a Democrat Labour Party supporter right through. I identify with
I had that problem once.
There's always room for you. Peter, there's always room for you. You always can come back home. But anyhow, what I would say is that the Democrat Labour Party, only on the Democrat Labour Party is to be the voice for the people of Barbados as well. Because we have a new administration in, yes, and there are some achievements that are happening, but then there's still some issues that are not being addressed that people want voices raised for. And it's very important that you learn a lot more in opposition than you do when you're in government. Because when you're in government, you believe, and I think the last election would have showed that the last groups believed that they were doing nothing wrong.
The heads get swelled.
Exactly. But when you are in opposition really is a time for growth.
Yeah.
It is a time for you to look at yourself and to redefine yourself and redefine your purpose. And I think that right now the Democratic Labour Party is at that stage where we have to look inwardly, so that we can fix ourselves, we can get ourselves together, so that we can be viable to the people. And I want to say to the public of Barbados that we are getting ourselves together, we are getting our candidates together, so that when we come to you, we can talk. We ready to take the licks. I'm ready to take the licks. If you want.
I just want to tell you something that in doing all this that you're mentioning about, I will hope that you put God first, because you will.
Of course, Jehovah God is important. Yes, God is important. The Lord has been but more so as it relates to the future. You would have already said, Peter, that the certain things the Democratic Labour Party should be doing at this point. I take it, and I believe that those who have been watching would have heard your comments. And I think for me, even as Vice President of the party, there's a lot of work that we have to do, and we will do it. But definitely, if you're the goal of any political party is to capture government. That's the goal of any political party.
That's not next election for y'all.
It may not be next election, but it's to get seats. But it's to get seats. But it's to get seats.
Electoral patterns, right?
It's a pendulum.
There was a government in the Caribbean that won an election. I think it was 15 love. This is in
Not Grenada.
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 and they lost the next one. I'm not sure. And
No,
He
no.
lost 3 after.
lost
He
three
lost.
after.
He won 3 in a stretch, and then he lost.
I hope
He
tomorrow
lost
you don't
four.
see the government losing and
Yeah, he got me good here.
How you
What do you mean? How are you talking about?
bring
Bad
back
things
the
happen.
bring back
Basically,
what
you're
the
talking about
bring
the
back.
NDP. The NDC got in. The NDC
NDC,
got in,
yeah.
but they got in with a few seats, like a 5 margin,
That's what we do.
and then they lost back at the next election.
I
They
want
got back
when
15.
when they get about that 16 crazy people that be what's it when they get
No, but this is good.
Yeah.
And I want
I
to
better
commend,
lick the deal crazy when they kept everybody at that 16 man.
but I want to commend this
That's
program
why-
too, that we can also have, we can sit on the political divide more or less, because we all talk and
Because
relax
the
and relax
DNP.
together, right? And we're able to, right? We're able
no
to,
political.
yeah, right.
It is.
We're able to at least have a discussion that is at least civil.
The last
That's the
comment
point.
here on WhatsApp from Korea is saying, the DLP glad they came because they got free advice, didn't have to pay for it.
Like, yeah, Ben.
The vice president here. But Peter, we definitely want
That's
to
been good, man. It's
thank
been
you.
good.
We went long, but we know you're accustomed to long
Strenuous debate.
debates because you're about outside for 5 hours sometimes a day.
Funny enough, when I told Peter about this and said we usually go to 6 to 7, turn it to probably 8 because it's him on, and it's not 9 o'clock, we are still here. Peter said, 2 hours is too long.
Well, a lot of comments came in,
Thank you,
and
man.
we were well watched tonight. We want to thank you for upping our viewership as well.
Thank you, boy.
We want to thank you for upping the viewership, but also that if you were able to come among us, and that's always appreciated for us, is that when we call on people that are known figures in this country and our leaders, and whether it be D, B, C, or E, and they acknowledge us, as young people and come and talk with us. It's not always about whether we got 500 or 1,000 people watching us, but it's the fact that these things are watched over and over and over
And sure.
and shared, and we were surprised that, as I said, in 10 episodes, we over 50,000 views. And so people are watching us. We're getting a lot of calls. We're getting a lot of interest in the show.
Comments.
We have Crystal Howell Saturday. We have John King next week.
Saturday.
Saturday. So we have some interesting people. We're hoping to get some other persons. So we really want to thank you for taking the time out, as I said, of your busy schedule to be here.
That's right.
To speak with us, and we appreciate it. And we want to thank all of you,
All the viewers.
viewers, people that spend hours with us. So definitely, Irene, we have
all the faithful
She's
Democratic
always locked.
Party supporters.
Corey Warren, who stayed on, and all the comments that come from the
You
WhatsApp.
got big up Berla too, who always watches it.
Yes,
and
Brother Peasy,
Brother
yes.
Peasy, and all the other
Yes.
persons that watch us. We must say that the DLP do stay locked to us
Thank
for
you,
some
man.
reason
Thank
or the
you.
other.
Yeah,
I don't
thank
know
you.
why, but they do stay locked. We want to appreciate everybody for taking the time out. So stay tuned. We are on again Wednesday. Please, Saturday, sorry. Like the page, follow us,
Sure.
share us, and we'll be here again next week. Wednesday with Crystal Howell talking about a number of different issues as well. And we really appreciate everybody.
Thank you.
Say good night, everyone. Good night. Sorry.
Good night.
Good night, folks.
Right.